Hello, everyone. Welcome. As you can see, this is the House Marbrand stream. We're big on House Marbrand here. Well, not we are, but that's not what this is. This is, of course, the Tree Faces stream, where we're going to attempt to further explore the mystery of why the Weirwoods have the bloody carved faces. My friend Grey Waist Tim, show off your shirt so we can see what we're talking about.
Yeah, Damon's kind of blocking it, but I am wearing my Weirwood shirt.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let's not disrupt Damon's his beautiful lap time here. So, but of course, we all know the bleeding tree faces. We now know that the original form, Garth the Green. I did get a couple people pushing back, saying, "How do you know that's a Weirwood tree? Maybe it's just a different tree with a face on it." And I was like, "Really? We're gonna get calendar artwork of the Isle of Faces, and there's a face on a tree, but it's not a Weirwood, when that's what we're known the Isle of Faces for?" I was like, "I'm pretty sure that's a Weirwood." Somebody else was like, "What if it's a dead Weirwood tree? You can't really tell if the leaves are." It's a little impressionist, the green leaves. So it's like, oh, maybe those are from other trees, and it's a dead Weirwood. But it doesn't really make sense there'd be a dead Weirwood on the Isle of Faces, where there's green men to like protect the Weirwoods and stuff, right? So
Mhm.
in any case, hopefully all of you have watched the Green Weirwoods video. This is very much a follow-up on the Green Weirwoods video. And, you know, you guys know how George Martin's writing works. He uses parallelism. He parallels characters and scenes and all kinds of things. And that's usually the best way to drill down into a theory past the sort of initial layer of putting the basic clues together, right? So we figured out that the Weirwoods, with Amanda's help, and Michael talks about stuff and everybody else talking about it, seems like it's pretty solid that they used to have green hand leaves, Garth Greenhand, planted Weirwoods, so it all kind of fits together real nicely there. But then the question is, what happened? I talked about a defilement of the Weirwood net. You guys know, obviously, Azor Ahai did that. That's no secret around here, but we'll talk about that today a little bit. And so I suggested that the bloody face carving and stuff like that, this was done to recreate what was lost. So this gets closer to the canon in the sense that, yeah, the children of the forest and the green seers do carve faces on the Weirwoods, and that it does enable magic sight, but it's
Mhm.
not wasn't the original method, and it's like making the best of a bad situation potentially, because that's the thing, is it always seemed wrong to me. I was like, I don't think the children are doing this to the trees. Like, that's not their natural way to do it. So I feel like we're getting closer to the truth. Tim, what was your basic reaction to the whole Green Weirwoods information?
Yeah, it seems like it's mimicking a loss of information, and now everyone's trying to reinstall something that was lost, but they don't have the exact means and methods. Kind of harkens back to what reminds me of is like the fall of the Great Empire of the Dawn, and then the set. And after the doom of Valyria, things like that usually follow a period of chaos. We get things like the Century of Blood, which is when all this, because not only is the damage done from these great cities and these great empires falling, but all of the information that's lost from such a cataclysm, and then it takes a long time before people are able to kind of wind back and get things in order. We can see that in our own history, like things like the Bronze Age collapse. Think of how much knowledge was lost and how many decades and centuries were spent trying to whittle back that information that was lost. Like if something like that never happened, think of how much more advanced we could be. Well, it seems like the same thing with the Weir nets is something happened to change the whole setup of how Weirwood magic and Green Seer magic was applied. If the Weirwoods were originally green and there was a set way of doing things that the men on the Isle of Faces, that the children of the forest were using, but then something happens to corrupt the Weirwood system, and now we have our Weirwoods. They're no longer naturally growing faces. The faces have to be carved in, and so they're bleeding sap. The leaves are no longer green, they're red because something's happened, like the damage has been done. And all they're trying to do is they're trying to keep this thing afloat. It's like something broke, and now all we can do is kind of glue it back together and try and make it keep working.
So I love that you said that, because George uses very often the metaphor of the library for the Weirwood net. So, for example, when Bran is in his coma dream, he sees the burning tower in his dream. And of course, the entire tower itself, the entire falling from the tower experience, is playing off of the tarot card of the tower, which is usually on fire. And at the same moment that Bran is in this coma dream and the assassin is coming for Bran and fights Catelyn, the library tower itself is on fire. The Tower of Old Town, the High Tower, it is the symbol of a weirwood tree. It's a white tower crowned with a head of flame, just like the weirwoods are crowned with red leaves that look like a blaze of flame. And of course, the High Tower strongly parallels the Lighthouse of Alexandria, and it's tied to the Citadel, which has a sort of Library of Alexandria vibes, and it's probably going to get destroyed by Euron. So there's there's a lot of that going on. And then, of course, my whole theory about Bran with the download is like we're downloading everything that's in the Weirwood net out of it. So it's another cleansing, destruction kind of a thing. Yeah, so it's a very important layer of the metaphor. It's a library, but it's also a repository of souls as well, as we know. So it's a very sacred, it's got knowledge and life essence and stuff like that. So, yeah, that's well put. And with the defilement of the Weirwood net, yes, it is a loss of knowledge. And so, so let's just get into this. The House Marbrand stuff is wild. I mean, this is going to show you what I'm talking about today here real quick. So the house, first of all, I should have done this already. I'm sorry. House. Let's look at the sigil.
Oh yeah, and then the Bronze Age collapse coincides with the coming of the Sea People, and who's coming to Old Town, the center of knowledge. It's Euron and the Ironborn. Sea People are coming to attack this great repository of knowledge.
Yeah, and also there's Sea People vibes with Fagon's landing, because they're not sure even who they are, right? There's like people on the still like, are they pirates? Is that they have elephants? I'm not. Is this a Targaryen? What? Like,
yep.
John Connington? Didn't he die or something? Like, they're all totally confused. So, this is the sigil of House Marbrand. It is a burning tree. That's a smoke gray field. That's what that's supposed to be. So, the right wing was all cavalry, some 4,000 men. This is Tyrion, by the way, with his first battle at the Red Fork in the first book. Heavy with the weight of their armor, more than 3/4 of the knights were there, massed together like a great steel fist. Okay. And we know that the fist is a mushroom cloud symbol. And with the burning tree, that's part of the mushroom cloud. Like a mushroom cloud looks like a burning tree. The weirwood is a burning tree. The meteors create mushroom clouds. It's a bunch of overlapping symbolism. We're going to see it here. We've seen that with the Fist of the First Men, Storm's End, a dark fist. It's a rising dark fist. Gregor's smoking fist, rising up to break Oberyn's sun face. So it's mushroom cloud. That's what breaks the sun, is the mushroom cloud. And it is a burning tree symbol, because the Weirwood net gets set on fire during the long night. That's kind of the whole thing. It's like we're going to see long night symbolism and Weirwood net set on fire symbolism always combined today. So there's a great steel fist. Sir Addam Marbrand has the command. Tyrion saw his banner unfurl as his standard bearer shook it out. A burning tree, orange, and smoke. So what I noticed right away about the burning tree, house words, smoke every day. Thank you. Oh, and real quick, thank you to Eric Graham, welcome to Squishers, and the Puddle 30. Appreciate you both. So this reminded me of Dany's vision. Okay, so Dany's hatching of the dragons is also a burning tree moment. She lays out the wood north to south, east to west, and talks about certain kind of logs and all that stuff. And it's creating the mushroom cloud as well, and that's where the dragons are born. So I just said it says, the burning tree, orange and smoke. Behind him flew Sir Flement's purple unicorn and the brindled boar of Crakehall, the bantam rooster of Swift, and more. So here's Dany's vision in the fire. She saw crimson fire lions, so Lannister lions, and great yellow serpents and unicorns made of pale blue flame instead of purple unicorns, very similar. She saw fish and foxes and monsters, wolves and bright birds, so there's your bantam rooster, and flowering trees, each more beautiful than the last. And then she sees a horse, a great gray stallion limbed in smoke, its flowing mane a nimbus of blue flame. And of course, the smoky stallion rises up to heaven, just as the mushroom cloud does, and just as the burning tree facilitates, ascension to godhood and all that kind of stuff. So here, it's pretty cool overlay of symbolism, but it's all about the burning tree. So Addam Marbrand, not only does he have the burning tree sigil, okay, he's from a place called Ashmark. Now, of course, Weirwood tree is based on Yggdrasil, which is an ash tree. Okay, now look at the names here. Marbrand and Ashmark. So Mar means bad. So Marbrand is a bad brand. And Ashmark is talking about a mark on an ash tree, which is Yggdrasil, which in this story is the Weirwoods. So the burning tree, which is the Weirwood, it has a bad brand, Tim. Mm-hmm. A bad brand. That's what's marked on the ash tree. The bad brand. And also the other point of the ash tree, it combines this fire of the gods thing with Yggdrasil. Okay, so the Weirwood is an ash tree because it's like Yggdrasil, which is an ash tree, but the Weirwood is also literally a burning tree in that it's burning with the fire of the gods. In the Grey King myth, the lightning sets the tree ablaze, and that's how man obtains the fire of the gods. So the burning tree, it's like Moses' burning bush. It's very important, the spiritual fire that it burns with, and that's why it looks like it's burning. And so, hang on a second. So the ash, so that's why it's the Weirwood is like an ash tree. It's both a burning tree and an Yggdrasil ash tree. So the ash mark is the bad brand. Now the name Adam, of course, in the Bible is associated with what? Original sin. Which a tree sin, specifically a tree sin. Okay? So Adam, what is the original tree sin of ice and fire? It's when the tree was set on fire. It's when the Grey King, who's an Azor Ahai figure, taunted the gods, and that set a tree ablaze. It gave man the fire of the gods, but it was a bad thing. Okay? That's the bad brand. The ash mark. The original sin. Furgun is happy. I've pleased Furgun, and Furgun has gifted 5 David Lightbringer memberships. So this is the topic, essentially. What is the original sin? The original Weirwood sin. It's something having to do with the branding and the burning of the Weirwoods. And so every time Addam Badbrand from Ashmark, every time he rides onto the page, we're going to see it's the same topic. Okay, so in this first one, Tywin's army, a great steel fist. And the rest of that, it's like an iron rose unfolding. There's a few other cool lines from this symbolism. But that fist is the mushroom cloud. So who's leading the mushroom cloud? It's Captain Burning Tree. So it's just telling you, like, the mushroom cloud that unfolds like a fist, it comes from the burning tree. It's the same symbol. So here's the next bit. Sir Addam was the first of the captains to depart. He made a gallant show of it, riding a spirited red courser. And of course, horses and trees are always parallel because Yggdrasil is Odin's horse. And as a shaman, he's hung on the tree. He's riding it like the gallows horse into the other world. Okay? And so it's a spirited red courser whose mane was the same copper color as the long hair that streamed past Adam's shoulders. So not only is he literally looks like the burning tree. He's got red coppery hair. He rides a red horse. And it's spirited, because the Weirwoods are full of spirits. And then it says the horse was barded in bronze-colored trappings dyed to match the rider's cloak and emblazoned with the burning tree. Also, the bronze could be talking about just first men because they use bronze and it's Bronze Age stuff. But it's mostly for the fieriness of it. And then some of the castle women sobbed to see him go because he's, a ladies' man, as Azor Ahai was. We said he was a great horseman and a sword fighter, Lord Tywin's most daring commander. So that's Addam Badbrand.
Something I want to bring up with Marbrand is this came to me through word association at first, but then I ended up looking it up. When you take the Addam Marbrand, the official artwork from the Fantasy Flight games by Amok, Amok does a lot of artwork for Song of Ice and Fire characters. Now, Edric Stoneskin brought up that the name Marbrand can also mean to burn or deface something. And Marbrand and their sigil being a burning tree, like through word association, I ended up thinking of the Marlboro Man from Big Tobacco. And I was like, so when you say the name is a bad brand, it's like, yeah, that's a bad brand. But if you look up when you look up the artwork for Addam Marbrand, he looks suspiciously like Bob Norris, who was the model for the Marlboro Man Big Tobacco advertisements back in the day. So it's almost like Marbrand is also a subliminal Big Tobacco advertising.
This guy?
That guy, and then look up Marlboro Man, Bob Norris, and just compare their facial features.
You're onto something here. We're cracking the code.
Like, yeah, right there, that first advertisement. Just,
this one?
Yeah, like look, just compare their faces.
Okay.
You see it?
He's smoking reds, right?
Yeah, and he's got the copper hair, the brown hair that's almost like a shade of copper.
Well, so this is I'd probably have to say this is coincidence. I don't think George told Amok to draw Addam Marbrand like the Marlboro Man, but we'll take it. That's pretty funny. Thanks, Tim.
But yeah, for you to say that the name means bad brand, and I'm like, well, if there's a bad brand, Marlboro would definitely, Big Tobacco would definitely be one.
Yeah, so when you say that Marbrand means to deface, that's essentially just translating bad brand. It's the same phonetics here. Mar means bad or to disfigure, and then a brand is literally like a cattle brand is burned into the cow. Mm-hmm. So that's what a brand is. A bad brand is a burnt in symbol, an ash mark. Like you guys are picking up. This is why it's like George layers the symbolism to help us, because it is kind of cryptic, and he doesn't want us floundering out here on YouTube trying to string this stuff together and having people go, I don't know what he's talking about. It's weird. No, like it's the burning tree is the bad brand. That's the original sin that Addam committed in the story.
Yeah. So if we think of
go ahead.
If the original sin is applied to a burning tree, and we have to try and figure out, well, what's the first burning tree? Like if we think of burning of the Weirwood, well, if we think of Azor Ahai, the evil version, entering the Weirwood net and him being in the corruption of it. Well, if he is a dragon rider back in the day, then his entering of the Weirwood, a dragon person entering the Weirwood net, would be a symbolic way of lighting it on fire.
That's exactly the idea. And so Grey King, an Azor Ahai figure, he is the one who sets the tree on fire in that story, which he does by calling down the fire he taunts heaven, defies heaven, and a fiery thing comes down. It's the same as a Bloodstone Emperor. Okay, he overthrew all the customs and traditions and cast down the true gods, and he worshipped a black meteor, which is a thing that falls from heaven and brings power and magic and stuff in a fantasy story. So, yeah, Azor Ahai sets it on fire. We're going to see that over and over That Addam, so Addam, we'll see, like he's going to have the 12+1 last hero symbolism. You know, the women sob to see him go because they love him. That's a cryptic Nissa, anguish and ecstasy. It's like pleasure and pain mixed together. Oh, they're sad to see him go because they love him. It's the same thing. And he's, you know, a ladies' man, like I said. So, an urgent shout of Lord Tywin. Oh, before I go any further, I just said Marbrand. Okay, yes, Kirsty, absolutely. The copper pennies on Penny Tree would make it look like a tree on fire. Penny Tree is a giant Weirwood symbol. Absolutely. I could spend a 2-hour stream on the symbolism of Penny Tree. We'll have to come back to that. The fact that it's in between the two hills that are called the Teats is very important because those are the two moons. And the tree is the cosmic axis, and they're orbiting that tree, kind of, in a way. Shout out Maegor the Cruel. Actually not. So, Marbrand. I just said Marbrand is the bad brand. Mar is bad. What is the prologue? Cast your minds back. The prologue of a Game of Thrones. Every good writer sets out as much as they can in their first chapter. In the prologue, we have a character pressing on into the woods when everything tells him not to. His fellow men say, don't go. The trees are like tugging at him. It's creepy as hell. The forest animals are gone. Who is this man? Heedless man charging into the woods? Like Azor Ahai charging into the Weirwood net? His name is Waymar. Waymar. He is marring the way. Or he is going the bad way. To do the bad brand. And he's penetrating the woods against all reason and signs from heaven. And what happens when he does that? The others appear.
Mm-hmm. And what they see when they arrive is they test Waymar and they see that he's the wrong one. So he leads the way to them and they reject him. Because it's more than likely they were looking for Jon, and Waymar Royce has some of the features that make him seem like, oh, this could be it. Nope, never mind. Reject.
Right, and that's important because Waymar is a last hero / Azor Ahai figure, just like Jon, and penetrating the wood is part of that archetype. So yeah, Waymar, Addam Marbrand, it's all pretty good. And so guys, by the way, this is meant to be a collaborative stream here. I've got notes and ideas, but it's open-ended. I am trying to figure this out collectively with you guys and Tim. So as you guys have ideas based on what I'm saying, feel free to chime in and tag me, and we can follow different avenues and things. Yeah, like the Penny Tree thing is maybe something we'll go back into. Yeah, just like Lightbringer and Nissa's heart. That's right. That's the other part about Penny Tree being between the hills called the Teats. Sansa has the symbolism when she dyes her hair chestnut red. So think of a nut, like a tree seed, in someone's chest that grows out and makes a tree. And that would be Penny Tree in between the Teats. Ygritte gets an arrow in the chest, roughly somewhere between the Teats. So it's the same thing. Yeah, that arrow that strikes and kills, it's the meteor symbol, but it's also the Weirwood symbol containing the fire of the gods. So, yes. Yeah, that's right, Nicola Blackwood. You heard me right. So, anyways. Hey, Girl Nettles. Thanks for reminding me. This Wednesday at 3 p.m. Pacific time, we will be doing episode 5 of House of the Dragon rewatch guide with Girl Nettles. It'll be me and Girl Nettles. Tim's at work. He can't come. But Tim, Tim is excited to do Ice and Fire today. So he says. You're not lying, right, Tim?
No, of course not.
Of course not. So yeah, tune in on Wednesday for me and Girl Nettles. Who knows what Girl Nettles will say? You know, will the channel get canceled and shut down in real? No, won't happen. That. Nettles is dangerous though. She's uncensored. Episode 5 is a barn burner too. That's the wedding. That's when the shit goes down. So don't miss that this Wednesday. In any case, an urgent shout of Lord Tywin. Right as I said that, Cleo gave an urgent shout. I don't think she said Lord Tywin, but Lord Tywin turned his father's head before he could reply. Tywin Lannister rose to his feet as Sir Addam Marbrand leapt down off his courser. The horse was lathered and bleeding from the mouth, Tim. Oh, just like a weirwood tree. Remember I said, horses and trees. Yggdrasil is Odin's horse. The weirwood is the green seer's horse. And so Addam's horse, already a red horse, now it has a bloody mouth like a weirwood tree. So Addam, let's see, bleeding from the mouth. Addam dropped to one knee, a rangy man, like think ranger, man who lives in the woods, with dark copper hair that fell to his shoulders, armored in burnished bronze steel, with the fiery tree of his house etched black on his breastplate. My liege, we have taken some of their commanders. Lord Serwyn, Sir Willis Manderley, Harry Karstark, 4 Freys. Lord Hornwood is dead. That's probably the symbolic line there that's important. Like, the Lord of the Hornwood is dead. That's kind of like a green man is dead kind of thing. And if you're Roose Bolton has escaped us, and he would be some sort of Night King or other figure. And the boy, Tywin asked. Sir Addam hesitated. The Stark boy was not with them, my lord. They say he crossed at the Twins with the great part of his horse, riding hard for Riverrun. A green boy, Tyrion remembered, more like to be brave than wise. He would have laughed if he hadn't hurt so much. And that's what Tywin had said. So now Tyrion is like having Schadenfreude, basically saying, oh, Rob's only a green boy, huh? But, of course, what's happening here, there's a river that's being crossed. And we're going to see the river over and over because the river is an important symbol. Mm-hmm. Right, Tim?
Yeah. What I want to point out here was Lord Hornwood is dead, and I fear Roose Bolton had escaped. Well, what's important there is because the death of Lord Hornwood is what allows Ramsay to then forcefully marry Lady Hornwood, the one that he keeps locked up, and then she then eats her fingers. Mm-hmm. And then Ramsay, when we're talking about the destruction of knowledge and all these burning trees, when Ramsay burns Winterfell, he burns the glass gardens, and he destroys all the crops and the plants that are there too. So that's another destruction of knowledge rolled up in burning tree imagery.
And Lady Hornwood locked in a tower. Yep. When she's eating her fingers, she now has bloody hands and a bloody mouth. So that's full Weirwood stigmata. And locked in a tower is the image of Nissa Nissa locked in a tree. And of course, Nissa Nissa being a child of the forest, green seer woman of some kind, when she dies, the whole point of Azor Ahai killing her, in my thinking, is to force his way into the Weirwood net, because she is already a Weirwood-associated being. So when she dies, she's going into the Weirwood net as well. Lothston. Hang on, put a pin in that. So, Danelle Hornwood, is that her first name? No, what's Lady Hornwood's first name? Danelle Lawston is, yeah.
I'm
sorry.
Danelle Lawston is
Mad
Danelle.
But yeah, Lady Hornwood eating her fingers. And so Lady Hornwood, again, think of a green man, a person that lives in the woods and has horns. Okay.
Danella.
Oh, Danella. Okay. So yeah, so it is a parallel. So of course, Danella Hornwood. So Danelle Lawston, she stays in her tower all the time. And that's why everyone thinks she's a witch and stuff. But she has the same coppery hair, and she has the symbol is the red bat, right? Or black bat?
It's a black bat on a yellow field. And then once the Lothstons fall, then we get House Went, who continues that. There's his 9 black bats on a yellow field, and it's through House Went that we get House Tully. And the Wents were originally bannermen of the Lothstons. So the connection is that there's presumably a connection to Mad Danelle from the Lothston line to the Went line to the Tully line that connects the Stark children all the way back to the Lothstons in Harrenhal.
Yeah, I was just identifying Danelle Lawston just as a Nissa Nissa figure. So similar to, and I see you, Elder Stoneskin. I'll get that in a second. So similar to from the Sworn Sword, everyone's favorite, Rohan Weber. Similar red-haired Nissa Nissa figure who is kind of trapped and locked in her own castle, right? And also imprisoned to the marriage agreement against her will. Okay, so similar idea. So yeah, Eldrick Stoneskin, there's a line where Lady Hornwood is described as having a stony mask in A Clash of Kings, and that's before all the bad things happen. So that would be similar to being inside of a weirwood tree, where you're wearing a mask. The tree faces is a wooden mask, but of course they turn to stone. And we have seen stone weirwood faces in the Rainwood, and of course the Stark statues maybe tied to green seer thrones, petrified green seer thrones, and stuff like that. So yeah, that's pretty good.
And for anyone who wants more Lothston stuff, you can check out my channel. I actually did a video on this, a history of House Lothston, and my tinfoil theory of Mad Dinell plus Bloodraven equals Melisandre.
Which is an excellent video, and I'm sorry for not bringing it up. If I could get a mod to drop Tim's Lost in video in the chat, that would be cool. Thank you. And by the way, if you want a Garth Green t-shirt, there he is. He's playing peekaboo. You can get that with the link below. Praise Garth. To our Bonfire t-shirt store.
Praise him.
Yeah, the horse Rohan gave Dunk. Oh, yeah, so... just in case anyone has, like, me and Tim's best work probably as a team was going through that Dunk and Egg series slowly, doing all the voices. So if you love Rohan Weber and all that stuff, definitely don't miss our Sworn Sword streams. We made the most of all that innuendo and yeah. Okay, so who burns loads of ships? What are you talking about? Fenrisian? I'm not sure. There's a Dany that burns their ships.
Nymeria burns ships.
Yeah,
Brandon the Burner burns ships. There's a couple ship burners.
Unless you're talking about the show, but we don't really acknowledge show canon so much. All right, so yeah, we've got a lot of t-shirt ideas. Submit your t-shirt ideas to the Discord, I would say. And while I'm at it real quick, if you are Discord or if you're a patron or YouTube's channel member Squisher, then email me at lightbdv@gmail.com so that and give me your shipping address and your YouTube name or your patron name so I can send you a cool Squisher pin. Yes, Light B, as in Lightbringer. DV, as in David, @gmail.com. Why are we talking about burning ships? So we should be, thank you, Jonk. We should be talking about more about burning ships, actually. So a burning ship is also a very good Weirwood Tree metaphor that George uses a lot. Because the number one metaphor for the Weirwood net is that of the Green Sea. As I explained in the Green Weirwoods video and elsewhere, the whole idea of a weir is that a weir regulates a flow of water, the fishing weir. It's mainly for catching fish, but it also works as a kind of dam depending on how dense it is. You can absolutely regulate the flow of the water. You can use them to, because part of the whole fish trap idea is you're damming up a deeper area of water behind the trap, so that the fish that are trapped sort of gather there in a little holding pen. So there's a trap element, there's a damming element, and there's a regulating the flow of water. And George really makes this clear when he has Bloodraven talk about time, the river of time. And he says, men are trapped in its flow, going from past to future, but the Weirwoods live forever. And so they stand outside of that river of time. They are astride it, but not moved by it. So that literally is describing a weir which does not move and the river of time flows through it. And it's regulating the flow of the river of time. It's also being a tree that's tall. It can see the whole river, right? Mm-hmm. At once. It's not in the river where it can only see where it's going. It's above the river and it can see the whole thing, or at least a good part of it. So that is, this whole Green Sea weir symbolism is really important. So the Weirwood is a ship for the Green Seer to navigate the Green Sea. The Green Seer can sail the river of time forward and back, can sail the Green Sea, the astral plane, and the Weirwood is the vehicle. It is the ship for that. So George uses ships as a metaphor. And when they're burning, then it's talking about the defilement of the Weirwood net. And we could go to the Blackwater, We did 5 streams on the Blackwater and pointed out there's a bridge made out of burning ships. So it's literally a weir, okay, a wooden, like a loose wooden dam across a river, but it's made of burning ships. And then go ahead.
It's Stannis' army that uses those burning ships as a makeshift bridge. So it's the
the
burning antler men are using it to cross into King's Landing.
And then there's a bit with the Jade Demon where the one ship that's packed with all the wildfire, Davos looks at it and he sees, oh, it's leaking green blood. And then a second later, when it catches on fire, there's a demon with whips, and stuff like that, and it's lashing everything. So it's like, the green blood is leaking out of, they call it a hulk too. So it's a ship, but also you think of the Green Man, the Incredible Hulk. So it's a wooden ship and a green man leaking green blood, and then it catches on fire when one of Stannis' ships, the Swordfish, rams it. Okay, so you get the Azor Ahai Nissa stabbing. And then, it blows up, and what do we get? We get a green demon with 12 whips. And
then we got to remember, and then add on to that, Green Blood is the name of a river in Dorne. We have the Orphans of the Green Blood, who are Rhoynar, the progeny of water wizards living on a river named after. Yeah. It's just, you see, it just stacks and stacks and stacks.
And if we have time, we're going to go to that chapter on the Green Blood where Aris Oakheart, a tree man, gets his head cut off going into the Green River. But yes, the Green Blood and the Orphans of the Green Blood, orphan is a child usually. So it's a green river with a bunch of children. And the whole idea is that they're clinging to a fallen remnant of their former life. Just like the Weirwoods are mostly defiled, but on the Isle of Faces, we have these holdouts. So the green men on the Isle of Faces are orphans of the green blood trees in a way. And I've got those quotes actually pulled aside. So, but yeah, this is the kind of stream I wanted to do today. So hope everyone's loose. There we go. All right. So
see the Weirwood more clearly.
There we go. There it is.
Yeah, Daemon hopped off.
And we're going to go to a scene with Daemon and a Weirwood. You actually reenacted a scene that we're going to talk about. Let's go ahead and jump to it because the Addam Marbrand stuff, we can come back to it. It's all overlapping. And the Daemon scene is very short.
Yeah, you hear that, Daemon? You helped out.
You want to read this one? Can you see it good enough?
Sure. Daemon at Harrenhal. No banners flew above the blackened towers and ruined keeps of Harrenhal when Prince Daemon descended from the sky to take up the castle for his own. A few squatters had found shelter in the castle's deep vaults and undercellars, but the sound of Caraxes' wings sent them fleeing. When the last of them was gone, Daemon Targaryen walked the cavernous halls of Harren's seat alone, with no companion but his dragon. Each night at dusk, he slashed the heart tree in the Godswood to mark the passing of another day. 13 marks can be seen upon that Weirwood still, old wounds, deep and dark, yet the lords who have ruled Harrenhal since Daemon's day say they bleed afresh every spring. On the 14th day of the prince's vigil, a shadow swept over the castle, blacker than any passing cloud. All the birds in the Godswood took to the air in fright, and a hot wind whipped the fallen leaves across the yard. Vhagar had come at last, and on her back rode the one-eyed Prince Aemon Targaryen, clad in night black armor chased with gold.
So there you go. All the birds took flight, and one of them landed on my knee. So you can you see why I pulled this quote, right, Tim? So you've got an Azor Ahai figure, a dragon man. He's in the Godswood. So he's already like in the Weirwood net in that sense. And what is he doing? He's marking up the tree. 13 marks. So you think of the last hero, he's got 12 companions plus one. And remember, the last hero might not be purely heroic, or this might be the redemption arc of Azor Ahai. There's so many ways I could play out that I resist locking into one interpretation. They are overlapping archetypes. But certainly we often see this. with the figure that is doing the transgression into the Weirwood net having last hero symbolism as well. So, yeah, last hero might have messed things up, or he might have been trying to atone for his sin or his father's sin or anything like that. But here we see Daemon the Dragon Man. There's 13 marks on the Weirwood. They still bleed to this day, so that's a very good analog for carving the tree. And it's also combining the Lightbringer myth with the tree carving, because Daemon using a Valyrian steel sword to stab the tree, it's like the tree is Nissa Nissa here, and he's Azor Ahai. And that's the whole idea, is like he kills Nissa Nissa to get into the Weirwood tree. You think of Varamir Sixskins. He kills Thistle and gives her the Weirwood stigmata, and then bounces into the Weirwood tree right after that. So it's like he's killing a Nissa Nissa figure. Her getting the Weirwood stigmata shows that she's merging with the Weirwood tree, and then so is he. Go in there, girl. There you go. So 13 Mars on the brand tree. Thank you, Eldrick. Well said. Very well said. And they bleed every spring, so that just gives you the little cycle of the seasons. Garth kind of vibes there. Then on the 14th day, anytime you see 14th day, think of a fortnight, aka the Night Fort. And who shows up on the Night Fort day? It's a shadow passing over. It's blacker than any cloud, so the sun is darkening. Night black armor. An Aemond one-eyed Targaryen with one blue star eye. It's the Odin one-eye symbolism that Bloodraven has, but it's specifically associated with a blue star. Mm-hmm. So this is an others wizard. Waymar gets the same symbolism after he's killed and resurrected by the others. Euron has one blue eye. So the one blue eye definitely, if you're at the bar and a guy shows up with one blue eye, like, just watch out. He might start raising the dead. It's every time you could count on it.
And of course, we got our Night's King figure showing with his one blue eye, but he's also clad in night black armor chased with gold. So there's that black and gold again, which is Baratheon colors, but also Greyjoy colors. So it's our Euron being, like I said, like before, the idea of Battle Over the God's Eye Part 2, which if it's Jon versus Euron, Jon acting as the Daemon figure and Euron acting as the Aemon figure, the black and gold, which of course is more king and yellow symbolism here thrown in just to put throw a cherry on top of that. It really does seem it's leading up to the idea of Euron Night's King and versus Jon in this Daemon Aemon sequel of sorts.
And Jon might have the exact same sword, honestly. Like, there's a lot of swords that Jon could have. Dark Sister is one of them, because it's in Bloodraven's cave and it's going to be coming back south.
If Bran and Mira, because if Bran and Mira can bring it south and reconnect with Jon before which seems likely that'll happen before Jon goes south to the God's Eye. If this scenario is what's going to happen, one would hope that Bran and Jon meet up before Jon heads that far south. Yeah, he may be wielding Dark Sister, which would seem, given Euron having a whole suit of Valyrian steel armor, Jon's going to need some kind of firepower. I mean, he has Longclaw. He already has a Valyrian steel sword.
That's Jon's armor, baby. That's Jon's armor. We got to get that creepy pirate out of that thing. And you got to wash it first, too. We're going to need some sage and some salt wash.
Maybe Jon will dual wield Longclaw and Dark Sister.
Well, so here's the thing. If anyone's going to wield Dawn, it's going to be Jon. There's a lot of foreshadowing that Jon will wield Dawn. Jon's Longclaw at this point has a lot of meaning for Jon. Okay, that's the sword he had in his dream that was burning red. It was Longclaw. He constantly thinks about ice. Ice is very meaningful to Jon. So if Oathkeeper comes back around, or Widow's Wail, or if they get reforged together, as some have speculated, that could be Jon's sword. And Dark Sister would make sense, because at some point Jon's going to be acknowledging his Targaryen identity, and Bloodraven sort of, transferring that sword to Jon through a couple different people would be very meaningful for many reasons. So I don't know if he'll grow 2 extra arms so he can have 4 swords. But this is where I get to like wanting to have a fan poll, like which is the one he'll wield. I got four.
Yeah, four possibilities.
Yeah.
I think, well, because I also think Dark Sister needs to find its way to Arya. The whole point of Arya having Needle and Dark Sister being a slender sword made for a woman's hand, Visenya wielding it, and Visenya being one of Arya's heroes alongside women like Nymeria. It makes sense, and makes sense that Dark Sister will eventually get into Arya's grasp.
No Sage said General Grievous, John. I was thinking Goro from Mortal Kombat, but you're right. Goro doesn't wield swords. It's General Grievous. Cheers, Kieran, and condolences. Yeah, us YouTubers, we hold it down for everyone, whether it's COVID or stressful times, and we're always happy to do that. So, the John could be sort of like a sword merchant clearinghouse, because I think he's going to give Longclaw back to Jorah. Okay, I think Dany's going to give him Dawn, which she'll have collected from Darkstar and Fagon. Dark Sister would be given to Jon, and then he would give it to Arya. Okay, so yeah, I think that's what's going on. It's just a big old shuffle. So just making sure there's no mysterious bird crap on my.
You definitely would be Lord of the Swords, just passing out Valyrian swords.
Yeah, it could happen.
Remember when these things were rare, and this guy has 4 of them?
So we'll have to see. But it could be very like, I don't know, lay them all on the table. Jon, Lord of Swords. Yeah, is this like a tarot card happening? I'm not sure. What's the 4 of Swords stand for? In any case, so that's Daemon. And again, so the rest of that fight, they're fighting over the God's Eye. Like, what does that mean? They're literally fighting over the Weirwood net. So Azor Ahai, he Marbrands the Weirwood tree. He gives it the bad brand. Then the others show up, personified by the Night King on a symbolic ice dragon. Then they fight over the Weirwood net. They literally fight over the God's Eye, which is also a lake, the Isle of, the God's Eye being a lake. So it's just layered symbolism. And we broke down the symbolism of that entire dragon fight and all the dragon fights, actually, in a live stream called Dragon Dances. So if you want this symbolism breakdown, I'll have to explain that, Girl Nettles. Hang on. So if you want the symbolism breakdown for the dragon fights, then check out Dragon Dances. So when I talk about Dany and Dawn, there's 2 ideas here, Girl Nettles. It's not that she needs to chop people, because Dawn is a great sword. It's a very big sword. It's like too big for most people. So it's not even just a sword. It's a big sword. The point is that Darkstar is going to steal that thing. And he is going to try to pose as a poor imitation Arthur Dayne in the Kingsguard of poor imitation Rhaegar's son, who is Fagon. Now, Dany is destined to confront Fagon at King's Landing. All right? That is not going to go well for Fagon. He's the murmurous dragon. He's a lie that's got to be slain, etc., etc. So I expect Dany to come out of the confrontation in King's Landing in possession of Dawn. And then what is she going to do? She's going to give it to Jon, of course, at the crucial moment, because she'll see that he's the one to do it. And the fact that they're both part Dane might come into it as well. But essentially, my main idea is that Dany will possess it and that she will give it to Jon. And that will be when Jon gives his sword to Jorah, who would be with Dany, and that would restore Jorah's honor to his house, and he can go fight the last battle in memory of his dad and all that stuff. Okay?
Yeah.
So I think something like that is coming.
A number of people in chat are pointing out that 4 of Swords means rest, withdrawal, and death, and that the symbol is a knight lying on a tomb. So this idea of Jon having 4 swords. A knight on a knight on a tomb. Black coffin theory rearing its head again.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's a lot of speculation as far as tying all these swords to Jon, but we'll see. Maybe we will see a scene where they're laid out on the table all together, and they're like, all right, here's how it's gonna go. Let's see. And then, so anything else I want to say about Daemon? Oh, well, of course, the rumor is that Daemon didn't die, right? Is that, oh, maybe he survived somehow. So that's like the whole idea of Azor Ahai going into the Weirwood net. That's why I always tell people, like, no, he didn't really survive. George put that in for symbolism because Azor Ahai goes into the Weirwood net and his body is never found. Like, he's in there, still. So, all right, let's go back up to Addam Marbrand because there's a couple other good ones. And then we will get into Sworn Sword today. So we are going to do some Dunk and Egg. That night they made camp on the southern edge of the bogs, halfway between the King's Road and the river. So there we're by the river again. And I should point out, the entire battle that we just were reading about with Addam and Tyrion was at the river. It was a battle of the Red Fork. In Tolkien, there's a famous boat burning, and it's all about the defiance in the face of the gods. Also, this is Jack Bond with a different username. I vaguely remember the ship burning in Tolkien, but not well. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a nod to it somewhere in the Ice and Fire bits, but yeah. Oh, the other idea about Dawn and Dany is that Dawn could have magic powers beyond chopping people. It's compared to milk glass so much, Girl Nettles, that I wonder if maybe it's a milk glass candle that can be used like the ultimate glass candle. And that would tie in with the whole Lightbringer idea, because the glass candles light up with this insanely bright white light. So if Dawn is a glass candle and can be used to see crazy visions of the past or something, then Dany could use it. And Dany is the one who dreams of the great empire of the Dawn Gemstone Emperors. They all have swords of pale fire. So Dany is potentially tied, well, obviously tied to the great empire of the Dawn, which Dawn might be from, but specifically the pale fire burning swords. That's from Dany's vision. So I do think that could be something there. Tarly's Heartsbane, Savage Sam.
Yeah,
He's strong enough to wield that thing by now. That's the thing.
Yeah,
Sam always is putting himself down, but he's actually pretty strong. Go ahead, Tim.
I was going to say, I could think of two possibilities for Heartsbane. Now, I know we had said that we don't really bring up the show, but what they did do in the show could happen if Sam stops back at Horn Hill on the way. He could just straight up steal it, just be like, F you, Dad, and take that sword and run. But another theory out there is that Randall Tarly may actually be one of the friends in the Reach, the mole on the small council, because he's the master of law and he hates he has grievances.
I feel like he's the mole, yeah, for sure.
So if he takes Heartsbane, his own sword, then Heartsbane could end up in Fagon's company if the Tarleys are one of the friends in the Reach. So I could see it going either or.
Yes. Oh, I do think that will happen. And I think that would be so poignant too, because it'll help Sam break this overly impressive image that he has of his dad. And it's like, oh, my dad's actually a turncoat, Yeah. I think that'll be very interesting for Sam to think about. What's this Theon-ness? Yeah, I don't know if Theon can wield a sword. His hands are pretty messed up. A knife, perhaps. I don't know about a sword, though. His hands are really messed up.
Yeah, and they took because his pinkies are definitely gone, and there's that whole thing, especially with Yakuza is a big thing. The whole severing of the pinky, it means not being able. It's
right,
weakening your sword hand, and George has already drawn on a lot of Eastern stuff with that. So Theon losing his fingers, especially the ones at the end that are really meant to grasp the hilt of swords, is pretty much makes it impossible for him to.
Yeah, he's moving into the mystical side of the plot anyway. He's tied to the Weirwoods, and yeah, I don't think swords are in his future, but he's his whole struggle. I mean, he's a lot of courage in what he's doing, but it's all about regaining his identity and learning how to help other people and be worth a shit. Yeah, he's no Corrin half hand. Anyway, Um, so that night they made camp on the southern edge of the bogs, halfway between the King's Road and the river. It was there that Theon Greyjoy brought them further word from her uncle. Sir Brynden says to tell you that he's crossed swords with the Lannisters. There are a dozen scouts who won't be reporting back to Lord Tywin anytime soon, or ever. He grinned. Sir Addam Marbrand commands their outriders, and he's pulling back, burning as he goes. So Addam Marbrand, what's he doing? He's setting trees and forests on fire. He knows where we are, more or less. Of course, Addam Marbrand knows where you are. But the Blackfish vows he will not know when we split. There's a lot of river talk and splitting, and that's going to pick up here in a minute. Hey, what's up, Ashero's trueborn son? Debate champion. So then, yeah, there's a line in a minute about him getting turned back at the river 3 times. There's a bunch of gold cloak stuff. Yeah, Lord Tywin had tried to force a crossing at a dozen different forts. And we just said Lord Tywin with a dozen scouts, a dozen crossings. So we got the last hero math. Every thrust had been thrown back. Lord Lefford had been drowned. The Craycall Knight called Strongboar taken captive. Sir Addam Marbrand thrice forced to retreat. So I was thinking maybe that's a 3 Forgings of Lightbringer thing there. But they're trying to cross the river is the main point. And then, see, the fiercest battle had been at Stone Mill. Stone Mill's important because of the mill, the cosmic mill, Hamlet's mill. The cosmic mill is another thing about the Earth's axis. You know, the churning of the stars of the Milky Way. That's the churning of the cosmic mill. The Omphalos navel stone concept is tied to the mill as well. So the stone mill is another world tree symbol, essentially. And so they're battling there. And what does it say? Sir Gregor Clegane, so many of his men had fallen that their dead horses threatened to dam the flow. So at the stone mill, the dead horses, which are like dead trees, are damming the flow of the river. So we've got the weir and the damming up the flow idea again. And then it says, in the end, the mountain and a handful of his best had gained the west bank, but Edmure had thrown his reserve at them, and they had shattered and reeled away bloody and beaten. Sir Gregor himself had lost his horse and staggered like a stag man, back across the Red Fork, bleeding from a dozen wounds. So another last hero trying to cross the river symbolism. While a rain of arrows and stones fell all around him. They shall not cross, Cat, Edmure scrawled. Lord Tywin is marching to the southeast. They shall not cross. Desmond Grell had been elated. Oh, if I had been with them, the old knight said. Where's that fool Rymond? There's a song in this by the gods. The mill that ground the mountain down. I could almost make the words myself if I had the singer's gift. So it's pretty cool. So the mountain is like the earth, basically, I guess. And it's being ground down here. So it's a very titanic struggle. Maybe that's the moon cracking, if you will. Because I guess Gregor is often a moon figure. So maybe that's it.
Yeah. And then it's also because Addam Marbrand and his men, who they're referred to as outriders, and they're burning their way across the Riverlands. But so too is Sir Gregor Clegane. His men are also referred to as outriders, as well as brigands, and they're also burning a path across the Riverlands. And then here they meet at a point of the Trident, the Red Fork, where these guys, Tywin's minions, his burning tree man and his mad dog, who have been burning all across, meet at this point in the Trident, and that's where they're ground down.
And of course, the Red Fork, if we're looking at the Trident as representing the 3 branches of magic, the Red Fork would be fire magic, and so that's where we're doing all this. So yeah, it's nice. And so Addam Marbrand usually has the 12 symbolism. Now we see it with the people who are also burning and crossing the river. Exactly. All of Tywin's mad dogs. So then if I go back a little bit here.
Yeah, that should be a song, Clowny Brown. The night they ground the mountain down.
So then Addam Marbrand becomes in command of the Gold Cloaks. And the Gold Cloaks are very much parallel to the Night's Watch. They wear mostly black, except for the Gold Cloaks. And it's just, yeah, they are sort of opposite of the King's Guard and King's Landing, and they always have fiery symbolism. So Addam Marbrand, he becomes a leader of the Gold Cloaks. And it says, he was the sort of man other men like to follow. I have lost the city watch. So, yeah, the watch. He's commanding the watch. And let's see here. Oh, remember we were talking about libraries and stuff? So this is the scene of Joffrey's name day when he's given the book, The Lives of Four Kings. It's a rare book. And inside this book are the lives of kings. So just like inside the Weirwood are the lives of Green Seer kings, inside this very precious book are the lives of the four kings. That's the name of the book. And what does Joffrey do? He chops it with a Valyrian steel sword. Have a care, your grace, Sir Addam Marbrand warned the king. Valyrian steel's perilously sharp. I remember. Joffrey brought Widow's Wail down in a savage two-handed slice onto the book Tyrion had given him. The heavy leather cover parted at a stroke. Sharp, I told you. I am no stranger to Valyrian steel. And that he's referencing the cat's paw blade that gave Catelyn the Weirwood stigmata. So layers of Weirwood stigmata and defilement here as Joffrey chops the book. It took him half a dozen further cuts to hack the thick tome apart, and the boy was breathless by the time he was done. Sansa could feel her husband struggling with his fury as Sir Osmond Kettleblack shouted, I pray you never turn that wicked edge on me, sire. And of course, he's one of the King's Guard, so he's like an other, saying, oh, don't chop me with Lightbringer. He also, Joffrey, when he held the blade up earlier, it ran with morning light, which is specifying ice as the sword of the morning. Okay, and then he heard a dozen names before he heard one he liked. So there's more last hero symbolism. And Widow's Wail is Nissa Nissa's cry, of course. So this is all Lightbringer stuff. And then he defiles the book with it. The lives of the four kings. Yeah. So that's pretty good. And Addam Marbrand is the one being like, careful, that's sharp. And then he's like, I know. Sharp. Watch me Marbrand it.
Oh, yeah, and then so Addam Marbrand becoming like the leader of the City Watch, because we were just discussing Daemon before, because Daemon was also once leader of the City Watch, and Daemon, I guess we could say, is a good commander. Good being relative, how you define good, but he did whip the City Watch in the shape in his time. But now we have Addam Marbrand, and he's coming off of Janos Slynt, who was a terrible commander of the City Watch. So Addam Marbrand now here, he has his work cut out for him by taking this. And yep, go for it.
Well, Janos Slynt, bad dude, bad commander. A fan of reggae though, burning spear. You know, that's his sigil. It's a burning spear, a bloody and burning spear, which is a good Lightbringer symbol, and a bad reggae joke. Sorry, but yeah, he's got the same Azor High symbolism, Janos Slynt, and then he's executed like Ned is by Jon, of course. And then, of course, there's also a leader of the Watch named Iron Hand, and that gets you back to the Iron Fist symbolism that we just saw Addam Marbrand have earlier. Addam Marlborough comes from Flavor Country.
It's a big country.
That's so funny. Just random confluence. Okay.
Smoke.
So within they came upon Addam Marbrand descending the turnpike stair in the ornate black breastplate and cloth of gold of an officer of the City Watch. Rumors of a small grave being dug? Me too. Under the circumstances, it seemed best to get up. I hear you're commander of the City Watch, and this is Tyrion talking. Shall I offer congratulations or condolences? Both, I fear, Sir Addam smiled. Death and desertion have left me with some 4,400. Only the gods and Littlefinger know how we are to go on paying wages for so many. So I highlighted this because 440 ribs on Nagas Hill, you see. And those are, of course, Weirwood ribs. So they are the old gods and Naga is kind of a god. So they've left me with some 4,400, only the gods. I was just like, what's going on there? Some Night's Watch, Grey King, Resurrection talk of some kind, but I'm not sure exactly what. Jason Subic, what do you think of the theory that the original ice was split into Dark Sister and Blackfire? I don't understand. And the splitting of the second ice is meant to echo that. I don't understand the theory. 2 Targaryen swords instead of 1 great sword seems peculiar to me.
No, if okay, how it's okay because ice has been the Stark ancestral family sword for thousands of years.
Yeah, going back to the Dawn Age.
As far as we know, and
there's been many ices.
Yeah, whereas Blackfire and Dark Sister are coming from Valyria, so that's so they're way too far apart for that to be possible. To me, what always seemed like the bigger standout was the fact that the Targaryens had 3 conquerors, 3 dragons, but only 2 swords, and that the idea that they didn't have a third sword is what has always been the odd duck out for me, and that's why I always thought that Bright Roar was probably a Targaryen sword before it was sold to the Lannisters.
Interesting.
But that might have been how Aenar financed his going to your faceless. The Doom was an inside job. How does Aenar Targaryen hire faceless men? Well, if he sells a Valyrian steel sword to the Lannisters, Lannister gold is the downfall of Valyria, and Aenar Targaryen is the middleman who got that transaction.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it would be funny if George goes the way of the show and he goes with he's like, oh yeah, no, the dagger. Yep. It's the dagger. The dagger's important in the books too. You guys laughed at the dagger on the show. Ha ha. Not sure. The mother is said to give birth to 44 sons as well, who were given magical armor from the smith. Oh, the Andal legend. Yeah, there's a few 44s. But the number symbolism is very confusing. So let me answer the ice question like this, by explaining what I understand to be the case. The Valyrian steel ice that Ned has comes from Valyria 400 years ago or so, which means that they bought it from the Targaryens or whomever just before the Doom. All right? Because the Doom's also about 400 years ago. That's been the same sword this whole time. There's a guy named Barth Blacksword who's named after the sword, which is a very dark gray, so it can be called a black sword. It's recently been split in half to 2 smaller swords, but before that, it was a great sword. So it would not have the original ice that Ned has at the beginning of the story, which is like 5.5 feet long. That is not half of an even bigger sword. That doesn't make sense, and there's no clues about that. And Blackfire and Dark Sister, I mean, separately, you could speculate that they were once one sword, but there's no clues that that's the case. There's not, just because ice was split in half doesn't mean that Blackfire and Dark Sister come from a common source. In the end, what George is doing is he's mimicking Stormbringer and Mournblade, which are a pair of swords matching black dragon swords from the Elric stories. And so he often gives us paired swords. Ice got split into 2, and the Blackfires the Targaryens have 2. But to get back to ice, the thing is that ice is a naming tradition that goes back to the Age of Heroes. And that means that originally there was some reason why the Starks started calling their swords ice. I think, and this is just my theory, that if the last hero was a Stark, and if the last hero carried Dawn as Dragonsteel, because last hero had some magic sword of Dragonsteel, that's probably Dawn. And so if a Stark last hero carried Dawn, it looks like a big white piece of ice. It's what it looks like. It's compared to milk glass. The bones of the others are also pale as milk glass. So milk glass looks icy. So Dawn, as George telling us, that Dawn looks like an icy sword. So if there was a Stark last hero wielding Dawn, that's probably where the tradition of calling swords ice came from. Now, obviously, Dawn was given to the Danes, or given back to the Danes, perhaps, if it was theirs originally. And it's being kept down there. But they kept up the naming tradition because this is a sword that saved the world in the hands of a star-classed hero. And so, of course, that makes sense. You'd honor that with a tradition. And so that's why the swords are called ice. And you can hear about that in the Dawn is the Original Ice videos, 1 and 2. So, yeah. I do think Blackfire is coming back around. I think Fagon will have it. It'll be using it as a symbol of Targaryen realness, if you will. So Dany might get her hands on that one too, or maybe it'll be lost or something. I don't know. We'll see. We will see. All right. So Stormbringer transformed back into its true demonic form. Spoiler alert, in the last Elric book. That's cool. I haven't gotten there. But all right, so within the came up. So Addam Marbrand is descending the Turnpike Stair. The Turnpike Stair is a symbol of the spiral ascension and descension from heaven. So that's a big part of the Weirwood. Of course, the cosmic axis world tree. The idea it has a turning to it. The axis turns, so that's why a lot of times the trees are twisted.
Wasn't the Tower of Babel also like a spiral tower?
It's drawn that way often. I don't remember how it's described exactly. So, so Addam Marbrand is descending the Turnpike Stair. Thought that was interesting. Yeah, that's all we got there. So, Dondarrion's dead, said Strongbor. The mountain drove a knife through his eye. We have men with us who saw it. That's one tale, said Addam Marbrand. Others will tell you that Lord Beric can't be killed. So that's nice. Like, Addam Marbrand, who is himself a burning tree Azor Ahai figure, he's like, oh yeah, Beric can't be killed. And you know who says that? The others. They hate that guy. That Lightbringer dude, they hate him. So that's cool. And of course, when Beric was reborn the first time, he was reborn in a grove of ash trees with the taste of ashes in his mouth. Those are the lines. So he's like, Azor Ahai is reborn inside the Weirwood net, which is a grove, which is an ash tree. And he's reborn in fire with the taste of ashes in his mouth. So it's pretty good stuff. So here's another one when they're talking about taking Riverrun. This is Jaime and Addam talking together in like book 4, I think. Storming the walls will be a bloody business, said Addam Marbrand. I propose we wait for a moonless night and send a dozen picked men across the river. Always wanted to cross the river with a dozen men, that Addam Marbrand and his friends. On a moonless night, in a boat with muffled oars. So in a silent boat. So the Weirwoods are ships. They're silent. They don't talk. So we're going to cross the river, cross into the death realm, if you will, using the silent boat, the Weirwood, on the night when the moon disappears with a dozen men. They can scale the walls with ropes and grapnels, open the gates from the inside, Tim. I will lead them if the council wishes. So shout out to Patchface saying, I will lead it. He's talking about the ranging that's going into the sea and back out again. Same idea here. Into the Green Sea and back out again. And here's, opening the Weirwood gates from the inside. It's pregnant. That's right. It's very pregnant with symbolism. You see why I pulled these quotes.
That just reminds me of show Braun when he's like, give me 20 good men and I'll impregnate the bitch. And then Ramsay too, the show version of Stannis, and Ramsay's like, give me 20 good men. So I guess good on Addam Marbrand for doing it for thinking he can pull this off with less than what they had.
Yes, Abigail. Great call, Abigail. And yes, Tim. Absolutely. So when you take all the symbolism out, you're just left with a crass line about, I'll impregnate the bitch with 20 men or whatever. When you have symbolism, you get the paragraph that we just read. So makes it more poetic. Abigail asks, is Euron's silence a metaphor for the Weirwoods? Yes, it is. It's a blood ship. Yeah, and on its face, on the maiden, the Iron Maiden on its front, is silenced. She's mouthless, so she's silenced just like the Weirwoods are silenced. And yeah, so there you go. And she's got mother of pearl eyes, so she's a silenced moon maiden on a blood ship called Silence.
And the deck is painted red to cover up the bloodstains. Yeah.
And the sail is black as a starless sky. So there you have the long night clouds darkening the sky idea. That's when the Weirwoods are silenced and the Nissa Nissa is killed. It's all right there. Yeah, so thanks, Minty Maelstrom, by the way, for doing the mod stuff. Appreciate you.
Oh yeah, and then if Euron is cutting the tongues out of all of his crewmen, then at that moment, all of his crewmen would have the Weirwood stigmata.
They would. They would indeed. Nico and Euron might be controlling them psychically. So, real quick, you can support the program with PayPal. Also, direct donation. That's actually the best way to support the program, and the link is below the video. And a couple people have done that. So let me shout out Nico. Thank you, giving me Clio funds. And we've got Carlos, praise Garth. Thank you, Carlos. And Andrew, incessant tapping. Question about the Weirwood video. Oh, good, because that's what we're talking about. Why do you think it's a Weirwood? Oh, I talked about this at the beginning. The face alone doesn't convince me because we know that all trees on the Isle of Faces were carved, not just Weirwoods. Well, but we're not told of any other trees on the Isle of Faces. Like, it's known for being an island full of Weirwood trees. And I was saying this at the beginning too. Like, if we're going to see a picture of the Isle of Faces, you draw a Weirwood because that's what it's known for. And the only time we've ever seen faces on non-Weirwood trees, they are humans. And they are humans doing it not in a non-magical way. Like King's Landing has an oak tree with a face on it. That's new. That's within the last 300 years because King's Landing was only created like 280 years ago. The wildlings, when they go south of the wall, they carve faces on other trees, but those aren't magic faces. Those are literally them just marking their territory. So we've never seen that non-Weirwoods used for magic. So I can only assume that a white tree on the Isle of Faces, and it is white, is a Weirwood tree. I don't know that I understand the confusion on that one, really. The implications are huge. I agree. But yeah, it's... What else could it be? I'm not sure. Because like I said, that's what we're told, is that the Isle of Faces is full of Weirwoods, and their trees were given faces so the gods could keep watch, and that means Weirwoods. So that is... I think it's pretty open and shut. Let's see. And that would be the PayPals. Is that all three? Yes. So thank you. And moving on. This is talking about the lost Lannister kid. What's his name?
Tyrek?
Yes. He'll be found, Jaime spoke with a certainty he did not feel. I have hounds and hunters sniffing after him even now. Sir Addam Marbrand was leading the search on the south side of the river, Sir Dermot of the Rainwood on the north. So, again, I keep talking about the river. The Weir is crossing the river. Yes, Tyrek is a horse. That's very true. He was last seen a horse. That's true. Shout out to Glidus. The river is the dividing line. The wall is like a river. And on the south side of the Greenlands and on the north side of the Cold Deadlands, the river divides things. So that's why the last hero figures are always trying to cross the river with the use of the Weirwoods. So then we've got here on one side of the river is Addam Marbrand, symbol of the defiled Weirwood net. And then on the other side is, he's on the south side of the river, and then Sir Dermot of the Rainwood on the north. The Rainwood is full of Weirwoods as well. So this is some sort of division of the Weirwood symbol. And I'm not sure what the name Dermot means. But Mott it must mean something. Because, like, Deepwood.
So Dermot of the Rainwood is a famed hedge knight. Okay, because I wanted to look up I was trying to find what the Dermot sigil is, but they don't have a sigil because he's a hedge knight. But the Rainwood would be, yeah, more green sea and tree mixed together, Rainwood. And Rainwood is in the Stormland, so bannerman of the Baratheons. So he symbolically would be a sort of stag man, and he's a hedge knight.
Ah, right. Hedge knight, someone who sleeps under a tree or a bush. Tyrek means an evening caller, someone who knocks or hammers at the door. Booty call. Probably hammering would be the thing there. Yeah, the missing, and the Lannisters. Well, I don't want to get into Tyrek, but yeah, I guess if they're looking for a weapon, perhaps is the idea there. But here the thing is, yeah, the river dividing. So we got Sir Dermot on the Rainwood on the north and Marbrand on the south side of the river.
So Dermot is a Irish origin meaning free from envy.
What does it mean?
Free from envy. Free man envy. Without envy, free from it. And he is without envy, he's a hedge knight, so that would put him a man of humble origins.
Maybe that's it. I see a very humble knight on one side, and Addam Marbrand, who, as we've seen, is Tywin's most skilled commander. You know,
and he's getting pretty up jumped with these promotions he's getting.
It's the anglicized version of the Irish name, Diarmuid, Dermot, which was borne by several ancient Irish kings. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Oh gosh, yeah. Nissa has there's a lot of language behind Nissa. There's the Nis, the elf people in Scandinavian culture. It means night in Sanskrit. Yeah, there's a few things, and the fact that it's repeated twice, and she's potentially tied to the second moon. Nissa, moon. Anyway, a motte is an earthwork base, right? Because like a motte and bailey, those were the earliest keeps. That's what I was saying. Motte of the Rainwood. Maybe that's part of it. But Diarmid is in the Finn McCool mist. That's cool. So then we've got and Niswan in Arabic means night. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so I read that one. Sir Dantos laughed and hopped from one leg to the other. Always recounting the Blackwater here. So Dantos the fool, laughing and hopping like Patchface. They came up through the ashes while the river was burning. The river. Stannis was neck deep in the river, and they took him from the rear. So Azor Ahai, neck deep in the burning river. So he's in the Weirwood net, and then he's talking about the heroes coming up through the ashes. Who are those heroes? Let's see here. They came up the Rose Road and along the riverbank through all the fields Stannis had burned. So the ashes of Azor Ahai's burnt Weirwood net, these heroes come. The ashes puffing up all around their boots and turning all their armor gray. So they're kind of like dead people or wraiths, undead people, Night's Watchmen. But the banners must have been bright. The Golden Rose and the Golden Lion and all the others, the Marbrand tree and the Rowan. Now, a Rowan tree is called a mountain ash. And even though it's not actually an ash tree, it's called mountain ash. So we've got the Marbrand tree, a burning tree, and then the Rowan, which is an ash tree, and also heavily associated with all kinds of occult folklore, the Rowan tree. So that's pretty cool. So it's like these gray zombie warriors that came up through the ash trees with the symbols of burning trees and ash trees. Tarly's huntsman and Redwine's grapes and Lady Oakheart's leaf. Those are three descendants of Garth the Green. So more Green Man symbolism. All the power of Highgarden and Casterly Rock. Every man of them howling like some demon in steel. So this is the Night's Watch. They're demons and wraiths. They're undead green men. They've come back through the ashes. So there you go.
Yeah, the talk of the river on fire just gave me a brain blast. Because the Blackwater catches fire, like the water is literally on fire because of the wildfire and how it floats to the surface. It can even make water catch fire. And then that's green, and that makes me. And then all the talk of ash, and then in Shy we have the Ash River, which glows green with phosphorescent light. So I'm wondering if the Ash River could potentially catch fire, like the river on
Oh,
fire.
right.
And then, like, I'm from Pennsylvania, so we got that famous point in Lake Erie where the lake literally the lake caught fire because of all the chemical dumping.
Shout
I
out
know
to The
George,
Crow, the movie The Crow, where they talk about that. Go ahead.
yeah, I know George would be familiar with that. So this is like more this Lovecraft Canal thing I'm bringing in when I bring up like all the stuff about tainted water, and George having like probably making commentaries on that. Is just, yeah, the idea of the river on fire makes me wonder if the ash could literally catch fire, the Ash River.
I have to think it can. It's symbolically like it's got the phosphorescent green radioactive energy to it. But yeah, we should set it on fire. That's a great idea. Question, a good one from Warham Salt Smoke. That's a funny name. Could Dawn be a sword stolen from the others? The descriptions are similar. Yeah, no, it's just an other's shin bone turned into a sword. That's what I was saying. You know, when Sir Puddles melts, his bones are like milk glass. But no, the serious answer here, all of my tinfoil at some point collapsed in on itself and aligned. And here's how it goes. Okay. Dawn, being a pale sword made with magic, it's like a Valyrian steel sword, but it's not black. So, the Great Empire of the Dawn are dragon lords that preceded Valyria, and Dany sees their emperors with swords of pale fire. So it's pretty solid to reason that Danes who come from the east, they come from the Great Empire of the Dawn, and they have the magic sword that matches the Great Empire of emperors in Dany's vision. Dawn probably comes from the Great Empire of the Dawn. Some people from the Great Empire of the Dawn, House Dane or relatives of House Dane, must have brought it to Westeros. Now, they say they followed the track of the falling star and then made the sword. Maybe they did. Maybe they used the technology of the Great Empire of the Dawn to make Dawn in Westeros. But that could be figurative language. We don't know that. Like, followed a falling star. That could be followed Azor High, or it could be, it could mean anything. So, hang on a second here. So if Azor, now here's the thing. Azor High comes from the Great Empire of the Dawn. He is a dragon lord from the east who comes to Westeros. The Danes are dragon lords from the east who come to Westeros. So there is an overlap there between the Danes and Azor High. And Darkstar is essentially a walking symbol of bad Azor High as a Dane. And all his symbolism is about the long night, including his name, Dark Star, Dark Sun. All right? We might even read some of that in a minute. I don't know if we'll get to it, but here's the thing. Azor High comes to Westeros with Dawn Lightbringer. He becomes Night's King. Either him or his son, someone that's in his family, or he himself becomes Night's King. So that puts Dawn now in the hands of the head other. And to complete the puzzle, the last hero, in order to defeat the others and Night's King and get his sword of Dragonsteel, he had to steal it from Night's King, I'm pretty sure. Just like Ned probably used Dawn to kill Arthur Dayne at the Tower of Joy, and then he kind of stole it by taking it and bringing it back to Starfall. So I do think, and the Smiling Knight wanted to take Dawn from Arthur Dayne too. He had a dozen wounds and he failed, but it's the sword that he wanted. And then Arthur's like, I'll give it to you then. So it's still implied that he got it. So I think that's the deal, is that Dawn is from the Great Empire of the Dawn, but it does become the sword of the others because Azor High becomes Night's King. So it all kind of fits. Last hero kills Night's King, takes Dawn. That's the Dragonsteel part of the myth. And then they return it to the Danes because the Danes are connected to Azor High. It's their sword to begin with. Something like that. And Arthur Dayne being named Arthur, is effective at implying him as king of the others. He's dressed like an other in Kingsguard's snowy white armor, wearing the name Arthur. So he's like a Night's King figure. Yes. Let's see here. And I've got a PayPal. Thanks for modding me, even though I'm pretty much just a troll. Bebe the Bard.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you're right, baby. I did set up a PayPal, and it's on my link tree on my Twitter. I need to add that to my YouTube profile.
Indeed. Bebe, I felt like you were quick on the draw. And I felt like when a troll dropped in the chat, you might be the most decisive at being like, no, that's an a-hole. They need to go. So that was my thinking there. And you're not a troll. Or at least not the bad kind. So that was the Dantos quote. Oh, yeah. And he says, do you know who it was? And she says, Rob. And no, it was Renly in his green armor. But Rob's a green boy, too. So similar. Renly in his green armor with the fire shimmering off his golden antlers. Lord Renly with his tall spear in hand. They say he killed Gaiard Morrigan himself in single combat. Who's the Morrigan again? That's like a demon goddess or something, right? That's maybe loaded language, but...
Let's look up Gaiard Morgan.
That's not an innocuous name.
House Morgan of Crow's Nest. Oh, and their sigil is just a crow.
He's Gaiard the Green, too. So it feels... It's the Dagda's wife. Oh, it's the Celtic triple goddess. Yeah, she's not a demoness. Warrior goddess. Excuse me. Celtic witch. Yeah, so I guess that's a Nissa Nissa idea here. That's what it is. Yeah, it's just a repeating thing. So you've got this fiery green man killing Gaiard Morgan and a dozen other great knights. So it's like sacrificing the last hero's dozen here. Gaiard the Green and a dozen other knights. So that's the creating of the others.
He kills a crow and a dozen other knights. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Pretty cool.
Oh, and then the other thing about Crow's Nest is it's taken by the Golden Company later. So yeah, the Crow's Nest is taken by Fagon.
Right, who is a dragon. It's because the Dagda cheats on Morgan in the Newgrange story. So I need to look up the Dagda. I do think Martin is working with that one. But I don't know the mythology. So no, Tim is not making a Sothorios video. I am making a Sothorios video. And it is recorded. And it is in the editing process. And it went great. It was a lot of fun. I've got some new shit coming. What's that?
Unless you're asking about my next Wojak video, which is good. Yeah, but it's not going to be purely... There's like 6 named places in Sothorios. I can't do a whole 30 to 40 slide like the other two, but I will cover the spots that are named in Sothorios in the next Be-Like video for my next Funsy one.
Oh, so we are both making Sothorios. Well, mine is a serious one. Tim's is a funny one. Both valid.
People love Wojaks.
Wojaks are serious. So Paxter Redwine, Lord of the Arbor, and of course the Arbor is the name of a grove of trees. So Lord of the Trees, Paxter, he marched down the length of the hall, flanked by his twin sons, Horror and Slobber. Are those their real names? I'm always confused about that. Those can't be their real names.
No, it's not their real names. They're just making fun of them.
This is what people call them. The former limping from a wound taken in the battle. After them followed Lord Mathis Rowan. So there's another tree lord. In a snowy doublet with a great tree worked upon his breast in gold thread. So white and gold tree man. Randall Tarley from Horn Hill. So Herne the Huntsman. Lean and balding, a great sword across his back in a jeweled scabbard. Kevin Lannister Sir Addam Marbrand, coppery hair streaming to his shoulders, and the great Western lords, Lydon, Crakehall, and Brax. So basically, I guess I'm just showing that Addam Marbrand is again marching with like a bunch of tree lords. I guess it's not really anything super brilliant. It's kind of repetitive, but we get the idea, Dave.
Horace and Hobber are the real names.
All right, so Addam Marbrand, the original sin, the branding of the burning tree, the burning of the tree, and the branding of the tree. Addam Velaryon, minor spoilers for House of the Dragon, potentially. We're going to talk about Fire and Blood here for a minute. So if you're House of the Dragon show only, then go away for a few minutes. I don't know what to say. Or just stay. It's fine, actually. Addam Velaryon. Will you read this for me, actually?
The dragon was Sea Smoke, his rider, Sir Addam Velaryon, determined to prove that not all bastards need be turncloaks. How better to do that than by retaking Tumbleton from the two betrayers whose treason had strained him? Singers say Sir Addam had flown from King's Landing to the God's Eye, where he landed on the sacred Isle of Faces and took counsel with the Green Men. And I hope they show this in some way, shape, or form in House of the Dragon. Even if the Green Men are just in silhouette, we got to see this. The scholar must confine himself to known fact, and what we know is that Sir Addam flew far and fast, descending on castles great and small, whose lords were loyal to the Queen, to piece together an army. Many a battle and skirmish had already been fought in the lands watered by the Trident, and there was scarce a keep or village that had not paid its due in blood. But Addam Velaryon was relentless and determined, and glib of tongue, and the river lords knew much and more of the horrors that had befallen Tumbleton. By the time Sir Addam was ready to descend on Tumbleton, he had near 4,000 men at his back. Mute.
Why did I pull this quote, Tim? What do you think?
Yeah, it's showing that Sir Addam Velaryon does make it to the Isle of Faces, that he's takes counsel with the Green Men, which is something that's like, because from what we're told, anytime someone tries to get near the Isle of Faces, something pushes them back, either like a weird wind or flocks of ravens. But for some reason, Addam Velaryon, if the story, assuming the story is true, which I think we can say it is, most likely is. George wouldn't throw this in there for no reason. For some reason, though, Addam Velaryon is allowed onto the Isle of Faces, which is something that the only other person we know of that's been allowed entry onto the island is Howland Reed. And Howland Reed is a major player because when he surfaces, he's going to have a lot of information that we need to know. And Sir Addam, more than likely, Sir Addam learned something on the Isle of Faces that's going to be super important.
Well, Tim, since you insist upon talking about the actual story here, not the symbolism, I will indulge you for just a moment. Yes, I do hope they have this on the show. I have to think there is some truth to this. What's the point of it in the story? Is this, we've seen the Children of the Forest interfere occasionally with the Targaryens. The Woods Witch that is the ghost of Highheart gives the prophecy of the prince that was promised, and Bloodraven's a green seer and all that stuff. So maybe this is more the old gods taking a hand in Targaryen affairs. But honestly, I mostly think this tale is in the story for symbolism. I really think that's what this is about. Because, if you will, Tim, just indulge me for a second. Forget about what's actually happening here, and look at the archetypes of what's happening here. A dragon man named Addam, original sin dragon man, is going into the Weirwood net. He is going to the Isle of Faces. So, literally the place where we see the Green Weirwoods, the center of the power of the old... Remember, we saw Daemon and Aemond fighting over the Isle of Faces in the God's Eye. Literally and figuratively. And so here, another Dragon Lord has come to the God's Eye. So it's the same story. Remember, Daemon was doing an original sin act by marking the tree. And now we have Addam Velaryon, another original sin dragon person, and what is he doing? He's going to the Isle of Faces. Now, it says he's taking counsel with the green men. Forget about that part. But he's going to the Isle of Faces, and he's leaving with an army. An army from the lands watered by the Trident. So these are river lords, the men of the river lords. So it's like a watery army. But if you're thinking about the Green Sea, it's an army resurrected from the Weirwood net. So this is the last hero going into the Green Sea, basically, and coming out with the Night's Watch, with a Weirwood army. That's what is going on. The thing is, it gets worse, because the name's Sea Smoke. If the Weirwood net is a green sea, then Sea Smoke is another name talking about the burning of the Weirwood net. So the Dragon Man brought the smoke to the Green Sea. He set it on fire. And that's why he's named Addam. And that's why he's parallel to all these other stories. So there you go.
Yeah. Well, as Chad is pointing out, so he is a bastard dragon man who is allowed entry, which could be a setup for Jon possibly going into the Isle of Faces. And Howland Reed is not a dragon man, but as a Crannog man, he more than likely has the blood of the children. And while I didn't go into symbolism...
Well, but he took Rhaegar and Lyanna to the Isle of Faces, so he's playing the role of a green man there, kind of.
He'd be like the rower on the river Styx. But they'd have to... There needs to be... what I'm getting at is the practicality of it, is that there needs to be a reason why they are allowed to set foot onto it while others are driven away. And it would be some kind of blood tie. For Addam and for Rhaegar, it would be blood of the dragon. For Howland Reed, what gets his foot in the door would be blood of the children. And then what would get Lyanna's foot in the door would probably be something like blood of the other. That there's something unique about them that's allowing them entry instead of being pushed away like any other person would be.
I also think we shouldn't rule out the idea that the green men and the green seers on the Isle of Faces are literally consciously choosing people. Like, they know that it's time for the prophecy to be fulfilled. They know these people are important, and that's why they're allowed to go there.
Is your name on the list?
Yeah, that's it.
The doorman.
Yeah. These people, Rhaegar and Lyanna, both have face cards, so they get in. Sir Addam's night attack, Tim, took them completely unawares. This is Addam Velaryon on Sea Smoke. Before the men of Prince Daeron's army even knew they were in battle, the enemy was amongst them, cutting them down as they staggered from their tents. The others are staggering from their tents as they were saddling their horses, struggling to don their armor, buckling their sword belts. Elsewhere on the field, Tessarion, the Blue Queen, threw herself into the air, shrieking and spitting flame, and Addam Velaryon turned Sea Smoke to meet her. So the accursed turncloak, Addam Velaryon, born Addam of Hull, had saved King's Landing from the Queen's foes at the cost of his own life. So he went down a hero, and Addam of Hull. Hull is a place where they make boats. So he's Addam of the boat, and the hull is a part of a boat. So it's the whole ship, Addam of the ships, you know. And the whole Velaryon symbolism complements this. They are Valyrians who went into the sea and became sailors and took on the trappings of a sea culture with the seahorse and the pact with the Merling King and all that crap. So the whole House Velaryon, and I covered this in the Weirwood Compendium, the Green Sea, episodes 6 through 9, I think it was. But yeah, all the Velaryon stuff, all the burning ship stuff. It's mostly Velaryon ships that burn at the Blackwater. They're commanding most of the Navy there. So yeah, it's the whole idea is of dragons going into the sea, and that's Azor Ahai going into the Weirwood net. So here we have Addam Velaryon.
Just like
kind of,
it's mostly Velaryon ships that are going to House of the Dragon. It's mostly Velaryon ships that are getting burned by the Merman, like Kragos Crabfeeder, constantly taking out Corlys' ships.
Right. Yeah, I need to do more. I need to do a House Velaryon symbolism stream because that there's a lot. There's a lot. So then we've got it's actually only in America that the C word is like seen as like super duper offensive. in any sort of in Britain or Australia, it's like saying the word dork. It's so casual. It kind of burns your ears at first as an American, but you sort of get used to it. It's just like the way somebody would say dick or something like that. You know, it's just whatever. Anyway, it's still offensive, but normalized. Offensive, but normalized. So Addam Osgrey, more Addams. Come on down, Addam Osgrey from the Hedge Knights. He was he's an interesting one. So go ahead, Tim. I'll let you go on. Why don't you go ahead and read this first little section here? It's got some Eustace Osgrey. So just off the
bring in the Eustace Osgrey voice. Okay, the boy had put his boots on. For once he looked a proper squire, in a handsome doublet of green and gold checks, and a pair of tight white woolen breeches. The breeches were torn in the seat, but Sam Stoops' wife sewed them up for me, he announced. That was Egg speaking. The clothes were Addam's, said Sir Eustace, as he led his own grey gelding from his stall. A checky lion adored the frail silk cloak that flowed from the old man's shoulders. The doublet is a trifle musty from the trunk, but it should serve. A knight is more impressive with a squire in attendance, so I have decided that Egg should accompany you to Coldmoat.
So apparently the classic French pronunciation is wrong, Tim. We say doublet, not doublet. Although it looks like doublet if you know French phonics, but it is doublet. We were being told. So I'm glad that we got that sorted out, chat. As far as, it's just, Minty's like, well, you can't say it at work and you can't say it around your nan, so it's not okay. But let me just look at this. Okay, so first of all, House Osgrey, the Checky Lion, their colors are green, gold, and white. And we see that. So now Egg, a dragon, the first, he's named after Aegon, the first dragon. So it's almost as good of a name as Addam. But he's dressed up in Addam's clothes. So he is an Addam dragon. And he is wearing the clothes of the colors of the original Weirwood. Green and gold and white. Woolen breeches. They're musty from the trunk, Tim. They're tree clothes. They have a trunk. They're musty because they're in the forest.
Yeah.
So he's...
Addam might as well be Valyrian. Yeah. If all names are derived from some old language root, then Aegon might as well be the Valyrian version of Addam.
More or less. And so here we see those things combined. And musty from the trunk. So it's a trunk, it's a tree outfit. And so they're Addam's clothes. And a knight is more impressive with a squire in attendance. And of course the word squire is almost the same as squirrel. So he's a squirrel, which is Children of the Forest clothing. So it's more Green Man stuff. And let's see, going on, there's more quotes. Now they're walking through the woods now, and it's very hot. And so Egg says, "Not so foolish as when his head is peeling, my lord," because they're talking about wearing a hat, being foolish. "Even at this hour, with the sun barely above the horizon, it was hot. By afternoon, the saddles will be hot enough to raise blisters. Egg might look elegant in the dead boy's finery, but he would be a boiled egg by nightfall." So the dead boy's finery, so he's a dead green boy, if you will. And he's wearing a tree outfit. Oh, also up above, Eustace, notice like he's all gray. He has a gray gelding and he has frayed silk. And of course, House Frey's color is gray. And so none of the colors are emphasized with Eustace. He's a gray king figure at this point. Like he's transformed and dead. But the young man has all the green and gold. So Dead Boy's Finery, that is a good band name. Actually kind of controversial, maybe. I don't endorse that, but it kind of is. Maybe like a metal name. It's supposed to be edgy, you know. Put a bunch of upside down crosses on it, and then no one takes it seriously. Something like that. So but now we're talking about burning the dragon boy that's in the tree. They're talking about he's a boiled egg by the time that night falls, and he's got blisters. He's turning red. He's peeling. So think about peeling the tree. It's turning red. It's burning. It keeps going. We'll take the west way, Eustace announced. It is little used these past years, but still the shortest way from Standfast to Coldmoat Castle. So we're going to cross a river. Standfast, obviously, is the Checky Lion's castle. It is the colors of it are green, gold, and white. It is a tower like a tree. The other place is called Coldmoat. It's the domain of somebody called the Spider, so it's got all the ice symbolism and the other symbolism. The path took them around back of the hill, past the graves where the old knight had laid his wife and sons to rest in a thicket of blackberry bushes. Go ahead, Tim. Read it. Read it here.
They loved to pick the berries here, my boys. When they were little, they would come to me with sticky faces and scratches on their arms, and I'd know just where they'd been. He smiled fondly. Your egg reminds me of my Addam. Oh, like right there, hanging a light shade on it.
Yeah, it's really
a brave boy for one so young. Addam was trying to protect his wounded brother Harold when the battle washed over them. A riverman with 6 acorns on his shield took his arm off with an axe.
So a riverman with acorns on his shield. So a tree man, and the river here, we should think of the river of time. So this is a Weirwood man with an axe, took his arm off. This is directly parallel to Ares Oakhart, who gets his arm taken off with an axe by a man standing on a pole boat on a river. And there's Oakhart is the tree man there. But yeah, it's pretty great. It's pretty good parallel. Well, I'll see. I don't think we're going to get to the Ares Oakhart chapter, but maybe we'll just do that next stream is read that chapter because it's got.
I do just want to point out too, like looking finery in a dead, looking elegant in a dead boy's finery. That would also be Jon if he loots that armor off of Euron's corpse. He's going to look good in dead Euron's finery.
And yes, okay, so thank you, Eldrick Stoneskin, and yes, Tim, you are correct. That's Jon's armor. It's got to be. So, of course, anytime you have the arm chopped off, especially with an axe, which an axe is like a hammer, the Andals used to use that symbol interchangeably. That's talking about the Hammer of the Waters, where the arm of Dorne was chopped and broken. And that is definitely what the Ares Oakhart scene is about. He gets his arm and his neck chopped, just like Westeros got the arm of Dorne broken and the neck flooded at the same time from the Hammer of the Waters. So here we have, yes, Addam. Ares Oakhart is the Addam figure. He's the one going into the river in that scene, and the one who is sinning. And yeah, so Addam, and let's see, when they go into the blackberry bushes, they come out with sticky hands and faces and scratches on their arms. So we've got the red sticky berry juice and blood from the scratches. So it's fully Weirwood stigmata up when people go in the blackberry bushes. Now, when Addam is dead now, and he was laid to rest in the blackberry bushes. So the blackberry bushes are serving as a metaphor for the Weirwood trees, which are a plant that you can put people inside when they die. She loved the boy and him her. It was never beyond a kiss or two, but it was Addam she wept for after the red grass field, not the husband she hardly knew. She blames Eustace for his death, and rightly so. The boy was 12. So there you have the last hero math. He was trying to save his brother, too, at the minute. I was wondering what you'd made of that, Tim. The fact that Addam was trying to save Harold when he died at Redgrass. Oh, kind of like Daemon Blackfire's children did the same thing.
Yeah, because Daemon and his eldest son Aegon both get taken out by Bloodraven's arrows, and then the younger twin Aemon takes up Blackfire and tries and continues the battle till he's taken down. Now here with Addam and his brother, if we think of Addam's children, it's like the opposite almost of Cain and Abel, because Cain kills Abel. But here the brothers are trying to protect one another, so it's like an inversion right there.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm not sure what to make of it either. Maybe the chat has an idea, and also I didn't look up the name Harold. Obviously, that's an important name. It's a very classic old name. So maybe somebody could tell me what Harold means, and that will give me a clue. It's got that horror in it, but so then let's see. The boy was 12. He died at Red Grass Field. let's see. No one else has slapped my face of late, my lady. This is after Rohan slapped Dunk. That was bad of me. A breach of hospitality. The good Septon has been scolding me. She gazed across the water at Sir Eustace, so looking across the river to the other side. I scarce remember Addam any longer. It was more than half my life ago. I remember that I loved him, though. I have not loved any of the others. So this is Nissa Knight's Queen. She is stuck in the Weirwood net on the cold side. She is still thinking about her first love, and she doesn't love the others. And her first love being Addam, Azor Ahai. So there's some tragic element to this. And we've talked about rescuing Night's Queen and Nissa from the Weirwood net. That could be a thing. Oh, herald as in herald, like hark the herald.
Yeah. Oh, and then his father put him in the blackberries with his brothers. He was fond of blackberries. Okay, so he's put in the blackberry bush, buried beneath the blackberry bushes. But if we think of the bushes as a stand-in for a tree, he is placed in a tree with his brothers. So this would be like the others. If we think of the others as being like a band of brothers, like the Night's Watch, and they're being placed into the trees, it's like a way of saying the others need to go back into the trees.
Ah, yeah, totally. That's the whole point. What I'm saying, yeah, I got to stuff him back into the blackberry bushes. That's cool. And then, of course, Nissa spends the whole night weeping. So there's the agony and ecstasy, crying out over the tragedy of the Weirwood net, you know. And then it says Dunk's world was spinning slowly when he hears about how they put it back together. It says, you would not know, of course, Coldmoat and Standfast were reconciled. Lady Rohan begged leave of Sir Eustace to cross his land and visit Addam's grave. So that's Nissa coming back to the land of the living, and he granted her that right. She knelt before the blackberries and began to weep. He was so moved that he went to comfort her. They spent the whole night talking of young Addam and my lady's noble father. Lord Wyman and Sir Eustace were fast friends until the Blackfire Rebellion, the great falling out. So they used to be friends, then they were riven apart, and now these two families are coming back together. His lordship and my lady were wed this morning by our good Septon Sefton. Eustace Osgrey is the lord of Coldmoat, and his Checky lion flies beside the Weber spider on every tower and wall. So remember, I said the ice spider is a symbol of the frozen Weirwood tree. Because a frozen tree, the limbs get bent down like a frozen spider. It's very literal. And the others riding the ice spiders means they are using the frozen Weirwood trees, or they're half of the Weirwood trees. So here we see the Checky lion symbol, which is all the colors of the original Weirwood, up next to the ice spider symbol. And the thing about the Weber spider is that it's Weirwood colors. It's black, white, and red. So this really is if you put the Weber sigil and the Checky lion sigil next to each other, it's like the green Weirwood net, the red Weirwood net. And what's the answer to this problem? We need to have a wedding. We need to wed the others back to the trees. Like, heal the rift. Reconciliation. These are the same things that I've been saying for years on this channel. Like, the end game is reconciling the others to the Weirwood trees. And these sigils are easy to decode now that we know that the original Weirwoods had green hands and green leaves and all that stuff, and no blood. So you got the green Weirwood and the red Weirwood, and they're flying side by side. They're in harmony. They've been remarried. So yeah, it's very satisfying to come, because we were going over a lot of this symbolism, Tim, when we were doing the Sworn Sword. We figured out the dam. The dam. Addam, the name Addam, remember? A dam. We figured that out because it's like the Weird Dam is the cause of the problem. The rift between Osgrey and the cold-moated Standfast, whatever. Weber and Osgrey. The rift goes back to this dam that's stopping the river. And we were saying, who's the original sinner? It's Addam. A dam. So yeah, the original sin of the Weirwood net, the original tree sin, was damming up the flow of the river of time. That's what the others do. That's what the long night is. The river of time is stopped. The cycle of the seasons halts. We're stuck on night and winter. So it's like damming up the river of time. Yeah. So Addam, a dam. This is why George Martin is brilliant.
Yeah, and I also think when you said Rohan's being allowed to return to the world of the living, and that made me think of the opening lines to our first book, "We should start back." And there's all these stories in mythology of how you're not able to start back. You can't turn back. One of them is like Amaterasu, when he tries to lead, from Japanese myth, when he tries to lead Tsukiyomi back to the world of living, he can't look back at her. In the biblical sense, when Sodom is destroyed and Lot and his family are trying to escape, they're told, don't look back. But Lot's wife looks back and she gets turned into a pillar of salt. It's this idea of these stories where you can't go back. And what a lot of what we're seeing here is trying to reclaim these glories of a lost past, trying to recreate the Weirwood magic, the knowledge that has been lost here. So just dawned on me like a lot of that is like, no, you can't start back. Time is like a flat circle. What we need to do is proceed forward and just fix the mistakes so we can lead on into the future. We can't keep trying to reclaim these lost glorious paths of myth and legend.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's all about healing and moving forward as opposed to trying to turn the clock back. There was a quote I want to get here. If the others need to rewed the trees, would you say the wall is kind of a problem? Yeah, the wall, Katrina, great question, is a symbol of the division between the Weirwood net. Like, think about the way that Ygritte describes it in the song about the last of the giants. You know, that's like, oh, you divided our valley with your wall and said that's yours. So it's like, yeah, the language is spelled out right there. It's a division. It's going to come down. The wall is going to come down. And when that happens, the others and the humans are going to have to mix it up. So this needs to happen spiritually too, but in a successful way, not in a kill all the humans way. The Dagda has a harp that controls the seasons. Well, the Rhaegar has a harp also, so that could make a lot of sense. I'll have to look that up. There's a couple of PayPals. Let's see. Love and support from Savannah. Thank you. Kelly Johnson. Is the tree you need to be a Night's Watch brother to use the only magical transportation? Oh, the reason you need to be a Night's Watch brother. I think, Kelly, I think that it is only the others who can use the Weirwoods to teleport because they are somewhat insubstantial spirit entities. The Night's Watch are tied to the Weirwood trees because the original Night's Watchmen were skin changers and such, which were resurrected. So it's Greenseer magic that enabled the Watch to do its thing. I think that's your question. So the other thing about this whole thing with the dam and all that. So remember I said the name Adam is implying original sin because of Adam and Eve. The original sin has to do with the damming of the flow of time. And so what happens, Tim, at the beginning of this friggin' story, this damn story, Brown, Sir Bennis of the Brown Shield. So everything about him is, look, brown's a fine color. I'm wearing earth tones, but Brown Bennis is disgusting. Like his teeth are brown. He smells like old cheese.
Yeah.
It's the shitty brown, okay? And so he is a rotten, crooked dude. And what does he do at the spot of the dam? He carves somebody's face. Remember? One of the peasants, he takes out his knife or sword to teach him a lesson, and he cuts his face. So that just shows you the cutting of the Weirwood face is tied to the defilement of the Weirwood net. It's not a good thing. It's not the original way. Just like Daemon cutting up the Weirwood tree to draw out the others, and go into the Weirwood net. It's the same thing here with Brown Bennis cutting the face. And then at the Ares Oakheart scene where he's killed, Darkstar carves up Myrcella's face, or somebody does. Maybe it wasn't Darkstar, but everyone thinks it was Darkstar. And Darkstar, of course, is a dark Azor Ahai figure. So he's the defiler, and he is cutting up Myrcella's face there. So there's always a face carving when these things are going down. And that is more proof, in my opinion, that the face carving, like I've always said, was not the original Weirwood practice, but rather something that happened after Azor Ahai's defilement of the Weirwood net. That's why I love these Green Weirwoods that don't bleed. It's like, oh yeah, those are the pre-defilement Weirwoods. They shouldn't bleed.
And then Addam Osgrey's death is that he was killed by a tree man with an axe, the Riverlander with the 6 acorns as a sigil. Then Aris Oakheart is the tree man, but he is killed by a man with an axe, Ario Hota.
Yeah, and they're almost like mirror people, Ario, Ares, and they're both like glorified guards. And the thing about Ario Hota is he's standing on a green boat. It's supposed to be the boat of the orphans of the Greenblood. So he's literally standing on a Weirwood symbol, chopping back at the person who wants to chop down the tree. But Ares is also the tree. So yeah, I want to unpack it. That's why we got to read it all line for line. And a lot of times there is mirrored symbolism going on. Like both Arion and Myrcella are doing Nissa Nissa stuff. Myrcella gets cut with a sword, and Arion falls from her horse and doesn't remember, and her heart is beating and all this other Nissa Nissa language. So, yeah. Tyrion had his face carved where? On the on the bridge of ships. On the burning weir during the battle where Stannis was crossing. That's where Tyrion got his face carved. Robb cuts a tree at Riverrun. Yes, he does. He attacks that tree. That's when he gets the news of Ned's death. We should read the scene. There's probably a clue there.
And then something else to note, because with all the Adam and Eve imagery, but one thing to note is that we have a lot of characters named Adam, but they're not spelled the classical Adam. They all have that extra D in the name. And as far as I'm aware, there isn't any character named Eve, like maybe as a shortened, but no one named Eve ever comes up. And I think that's because, like, to actually invoke Adam and Eve in that sense would be too on the nose. Like, that's why we got to look at the symbolism. Sometimes why don't you do the thing? Because sometimes it's just too obvious. And that's why you want to steer away from it.
Yeah, and he obviously was in love with somebody named Leah or Lyanna or Lya or something, because half of his women and all the Nissa Nissa women practically, yeah, they've got variants of... Actually, it's mostly the Night Queen people that have those names. A lot of the Nissa Nissa women have Ash-related names. Asha, Osha, Ash, the Children of the Forest. What other ones? Ashara. There's more. But yeah, and then the other ones, they're all like Alanis, Lysa. Catelyn is got part of it in there, but it's more Lysa, Alanis, Lyanna, Alysanne. Yeah. So anyway, basically Nissa Nissa is Eve. Mm-hmm. And I talked about that. Check out, I've got a video called Eve Did Nothing Wrong that's just talking about the Garden of Eden symbolism. And it's basically talking about how Eve is a stripped down version of the Canaanite goddess Asherah, or Asherah. It's Asherah is how you say it. But Asherah is a snaky tree goddess associated with rebirth. And both snakes and trees are associated with cycles of rebirth. That's the link. Mm-hmm. So when Adam goes up to the tree in the Garden of Eden and sees a divine woman holding out a fruit that a snake gave her, that's actually Asherah in her sacred garden holding out the food of the gods. It's a very good thing. It's Eve did nothing wrong, and neither did Adam, actually. But so yeah, all the Asha and Ashara names are basically Eve names because Eve is Asherah. So
yeah. Because George, in his writing, as he progresses from book to book, he does like to lead us back to things to like really cement this is what happened through a symbolic way. That's why sometimes and sometimes it gets to a point where he just wants to be like, okay, I really got to mash this in your head. This is what's happening. Like you pointed out when Bonero does his whole thing with the fire and the meat and the when he's doing his whole big show in Volantis. And but other times it's like, but you also don't want to make it too obvious. That's why to have like a actual Adam and Eve duo, too obvious. It just makes everything like, okay, now you know what's going on. Same with like to have like a Cain and Abel, but we don't have that. But we have plenty of Abel anagrams with all the Bale characters. So that's like George's writing style. But sometimes to make things too obvious just removes so much of the mystique.
What are the Valerians during the Long Night? Now they seem to have arisen after the Long Night. And the whole, check out my Great Empire of the Dawn videos. But basically, the ancestors of Valeria are from Ashai, and those are the people that's where Azor Ahai comes from. That's Valeria is like the reflowering of part of the Great Empire of the Dawn after the Long Night, essentially. So then there's a fellow named Greenbeard, and he is one of Barrack's band, and he's from Tyrosh, so he dyes his beard green, but he does a lot of symbolic stuff. And the main thing is he interacts with Arya, whom he calls the skinny squirrel and the golden squirrel. So Arya is the Nissa Nissa person, and she's the golden squirrel because the children of the forest are squirrel people, and she's the valuable special one. And Greenbeard is the one who delivers her to Barrack. So there might be something there with like a green man who sells out Nissa Nissa to Azor Ahai or something like that. We've seen this pattern a bunch of times where there's like a traitor, green man. And it's kind of what Ari's Oakheart is doing, I guess, maybe. He's like taking Myrcella into a trap. Rereading that chapter, Arianne comes across really badly. She really does. I sort of didn't catch it for some reason until I read it last. I was like, man. She's so irresponsible. But we'll talk about that another day. So Greenbeard, he's potentially a character that might be telling us some stuff. Yeah, she's got acorns on her dress. It's great. I mean, she's like a tree squirrel woman. Those are great chapters.
Yeah. And then with Yggdrasil, there's that squirrel, Rod, I always blank on his name. I know it starts with an R, but the one who runs the messages between the eagle at the top and the serpent. Yeah, so because Arya has like that moment where she's like, when she's supposed to be the cupbearer, in the show it's to Tywin, but in the books it's to Roose, but where she's kind of like cracking open those messages and reading them for herself. And it's the idea, I don't know if you've heard the theory, like what if what's his name again? The squirrel?
Ratatosk. Sometimes there's an R at the end, but that's like a lot of Norse words.
Well, there's like this idea out there I've heard about what if Ratatosk was cracking open some of those messages between the dragon and the eagle and taking that for himself, like the squirrel's committing mail fraud.
Well, that's the implication is he's bearing words of enmity between the dragon and the eagle to like stir them up. So yeah, we don't understand Norse myth very well, but yeah, words of enmity is part of it. So, so Arya is definitely doing that. She is literally going up and down the tower, communicating between people. So that's pretty cool. And then there's a Night's Watch ranger named Giant Bedwick. But he climbs the weirwood tree like a squirrel. And then later he makes his home in a dead oak. And he's like, how do you like my castle? The green blood, I think I'm going to save that stuff for the Ari's Oakheart chapter. We talked about it a little bit, but yeah, there's more river dividing stuff. It's the lifeblood of the land, the orphans. We talked about that. There's a really funny little bit. See, I didn't even unhighlight this stuff. Before Sunspear arose, there's a funny story about what used to be there. A second rival High King of Dorne, and this is a rival to the Ironwood Kings, also existed during the times of the First Men, ruling from a great wooden Mott and Bailey castle on the south bank of the Green Blood near Lemonwood, which is very close to where Sunspear would eventually be, where the river flows into the summer sea. This was a curious kingship, for whenever a king died, his successor was chosen by election from amongst a dozen noble families that had settled along the river or the eastern shores. The Wades, Shells, Holts, Brooks, Hulls, Lakes, Brownhills, and Briars all threw up kings. Blech. Throw up kings, who ruled from the high hall amongst the lemon trees. But in the end, this curious system broke down when a disputed election sent the royal houses to warring against one another. After a generation of conflict, 3 of the old houses were wiped from the earth, and the once powerful river realm had shattered into a dozen quarrelsome petty kingdoms.
So Dorne used to have a king's moot.
Kinda, yeah.
Yeah.
And they ruled from a tree hall. So it's a dozen families. They're ruling from a tree hall. And then there was a civil war. So it just feels like a miniature tale of the whole thing, kind of, right?
Mm-hmm.
I just thought that was interesting. Like, I must have read that once and completely forgot about it because I found it in the searching for Greenblood and was just like, what is that? It's a democratic tree court.
Well, I think that could lay more idea to more First Men of the East thing, because if we look at this as a sort of Dornish Kingsmoot, and we've talked about how the Ironborn, the whole idea of the Salt King and the Rock King could be a holdover from a far eastern place like Leng, and it seems like something similar happened here in Dorne, and he even says the Eastern Shores. Yeah, this sounds like more First Men of the East talk.
So there are people have pointed out to me that the wildlings in the Vale all choose their leaders as well. So there are some indications that democracy, a rough form of democracy, if you will, is something the First Men do in places, and this is probably more evidence of that. So I think what we're supposed to understand is, like, you know, there used to be called the 100 Kingdoms. So Westeros used to be a place where every different sort of arrangement might exist. Like every little local area was different. But we have seen several of these sort of, tribal election type of things. Brienne of Tarth is, I should do a whole stream on her symbolism. We definitely should do that. I've talked about her symbolism. We've definitely done some of her chapters, but she is one who transforms from a Nissa Nissa into a Night's Queen, or actually I should say maybe more like a Night's Queen into a last hero. More like she has parallel symbolism to Jon a lot of the times when she's doing a warrior thing. She's like an icy heroic warrior. So she's very last hero like. But her maiden symbolism is like Night's Queen. So, yeah, we should do that. And just look at the Tarth sigil. You know, sunset, sunrise, even star, Galadon of Morn, magic swords. Yeah, I mean, it was a lot. I did talk about Galadon recently in... What video was that? I don't remember. It's one of my good ones. I don't remember though. Right. Oh, we're talking about Eve, right? Because she's the daughter of the Even Star. Yeah. Well, that's the whole thing, though, is that the female part of the Lightbringer mythology is Venus and Aphrodite. And that's all Even Star related stuff. That's what I was trying to say simply. And of course, Brienne is Brienne the Beauty. She has a lot of Venus symbolism. She's the daughter of the Even Star. And she's Brienne the Beauty. It's the Dane. Yeah, thank you. The Dane origin video. That's it. Cool. Well, there you go. I think that's probably a good place to bring it to a rest. Unless you guys have any final questions for me. Greywaste Tim, are you looking forward to when my homie Jon Snow, this is from Kelly Johnson, puts them hands on Euron and takes that punk's Valyrian armor from him. I think we all are, Kelly.
Yeah. I want Battle of the God's Eye Part 2 is something that has been built up in our collective conscious so much that it's like I don't see how it cannot happen. Like George has laid so much of the groundwork for it that it seems like it just has to happen. Like Euron's got too many parallels to Aemond One Eye, and Jon being a direct descendant of Daemon Targaryen just sets it up way too much. And that Valyrian steel armor needs to be put to use to someone good.
Yeah, the cool thing about Brienne, her beauty and Venus symbolism, is that George uses it in multiple ways. So with Brienne and Jaime, it's Beauty and the Beast. But Jaime's the beast. He's the beautiful beast, and she's the ugly beauty. Ugly, conventionally ugly, whatever. You get the idea, right? So it's a Beauty and the Beast thing. They're both role switching with that story. But then Brienne is also the beauty in the Venus even star sense with all the Lightbringer symbolism. And you'll notice she has Oathkeeper, which is a Valyrian steel sword been dyed red, but it's also the original. It's not the original, but it's the Ice of House Stark. So it's a last hero sword, but also a Lightbringer sword. And she is a Venus character. So there you go. She's the beauty, and Jaime falls in love. There's a lot of. You could do several streams on Jaime and Brienne. By the way, we are going to do some Jaime and Cersei chapter rereads coming up. I've been meaning to get to those. We're going to get to those very soon. So yeah, that's coming. Including Jaime and Brienne's fight in the river, which is awesome. All right, folks. Tywin's funeral. Yep, that's a good one.
Yeah, we got to do the one where Jaime gets that nerdy Blackwood kid.
Yes.
Yeah.
Alistair Blackwood. Yeah, we had fun with that last Jaime chapter. So, yeah, more Jaime and Cersei coming your way for sure. And then, like I said, Wednesday will be House of the Dragon episode 5. Thorios video, I can't promise. It might come out this week or it might come out early next week. We shall see. And make sure you subscribe to Grey Waste Tim.
Yep.
Check out his Danelle Lawston video.
Check out Danelle Lawston. Check out the color out of a shy for more of what I was talking about, setting the Ash River on fire and the Lovecraft Canal stuff. My next videos will be the next Funzy video with the Wojaks will be the Lands of Ice and Fire, where I'll cover Sithorios and everyone who's been commenting like, you forgot Seaguard, you forgot Lazarine. You'll get your wish. We're going to do a second lap around Westeros and Essos with that one. The next serious video that I want to do, we won't be talking about trees. We'll be talking about fruit. And that's going to be looking at the dangerous, the vibrant orange trope that comes from The Godfather and how George seems to have used that with Doran Martell, the blood oranges. We'll talk about Doran Martell's oranges and Dany's lemon tree. I'm going to title that one A Song of Lies and Citrus.
Make sure you got that lemon tree prominently on the cover. You'll get the clicks for that. So, yeah. So, earlier question from Tracy C-Star. The flaming sword of Azor Ahai plunging into Nissa Nissa could be a metaphor for impregnated. Yeah, so it definitely is. And the child was the blood sacrifice that brought the comet. Well, what brought the comet is a complex question, which can be set aside. We have to talk about horns and trees and all kinds of crap. But yes, for 100% certain, the Lightbringer Nissa Nissa myth, one meaning of it is absolutely childbirth. No question. Yeah, that's the sacrifice that parents make to bring a new life in the world on a thematic level. And if you notice, the mothers of Jon and Dany both died in childbirth, right? Didn't Rhaella die in childbirth as well?
Yeah, she dies giving birth to Dany. Right.
And then, of course, Lyanna. Tyrion's mother as well, for what it counts. And If Euron could kill his mother, I'm sure he would. But yeah, so yeah, the sex and swordplay stuff, that's been part of my interpretation of the Azor High myth since 2015, like from the beginning. That was part of my first essay. It's definitely about reproduction. Not just, but definitely about that. And it also ties into the idea of the Holy Grail being a secret bloodline of Christ and Mary Magdalene and all that stuff. That is part of it as well. So there you go, guys. Thanks for joining me. Really appreciate you. Make sure you click like if you're watching. And once the video's over, if you hit refresh and leave a comment, that would be cool too. And yeah, that's it. I will see you on Wednesday for House of the Dragon. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Have a happy
Thanks
weekend.
for having me. Always a pleasure.